the most elite magic academy on the continent, where every single student can bend mana with their bare hands. So why is the professor standing there, with his mouth open watching a spell get sliced in half? And why is the guy holding the sword, the one student in this entire building who physically cannot use magic? Stella Academy. Arcanion, the city of magic. Magic towers, magic knights, 5 academies, and this one sits above all of them. Every noble house on the continent fights to get a kid through that gate, and the ones who make it are geniuses before they even sit down. And then there's Baek Yuseol, commoner, no family name worth saying out loud, entered dead last out of 1,141 applicants, somehow ended up in Class S, and hasn't cast a single spell since he walked in. So today is defense magic practice, and the whole class is out on the field throwing up shields. The instructor is walking the line looking pleased with himself, because this year's freshmen are stacked and he knows it. Then he gets to the one kid standing completely still. Baek isn't practicing. Baek isn't holding a staff like anybody else holds a staff. Bro is just there. The instructor asks him what he thinks he's doing, and our boy basically says he's working on a different kind of defense. Wrong answer for that guy. So the professor decides to make an example out of him, announces a one-on-one spar in front of everyone, and picks the opponent himself. This red-haired guy who's already grinning, stretching, and already imagining the free aura he will farm on the loser. Turn-based rules. Each side attacks only when they're told to. The crowd starts cheering for the redhead before the match even begins. Nobody in that field thinks this goes past 30 seconds. Baek doesn't react to any of it, because this class is mandatory. Little smile. Time to see if the training paid off. The redhead goes first. Full confidence. Big showy cast. Baek doesn't dodge. He sets his feet, watches the spell come, and cuts it clean out of the air. Dead silence. Girls in the crowd are asking each other if you can even do that to magic. The instructor's brain is buffering, because that spell didn't get blocked or absorbed. The flow got severed and the whole thing stopped existing. The redhead is shaking, says it's impossible. Baek looks like he just sliced fruit. So the instructor, in front of his entire class, starts coaching the other kid mid-match. Says the technique has a weakness. Says one blade can't answer a chain of attacks arriving at once. Handed him the counter with no shame at all. Even Baek is standing there like, brother, they're watching you. The redhead loads up everything he has. 11 stone projectiles, all at once, all at Baek, so he spins the blade so fast it turns into a wall, and eats every single one, then quietly admits to himself he stole that move from a video game. The redhead has nothing left, and rage is a hell of a drug, so he starts gathering mana for another attack out of turn, breaking the rules in front of the entire class, while the instructor conveniently looks somewhere else. That's when a voice cuts across the field. Jeremy Scarlvin, Crown Prince. He steps in and asks the instructor why Baek still hasn't been given permission to attack. The man has nowhere to hide. Permission granted, and the redhead is still standing there loaded up, still glowing. Baek is gone before the class can blink. The sword comes down through the guy's guard, through the spell he never got to finish, and the mana just dies in his hands. The students who were cheering 30 seconds ago are now asking each other what school this guy actually came from. Now hold on, because to understand how a guy with no magic ended up here, we need to rewind. 10 years ago, a dating sim dropped called Aetherworld, and inside it, there was one character everybody agreed was garbage. Bro couldn't store mana at all. In a world where magic is breathing, this character had some sort of a hole in him and energy dispersed, but he had one single skill, blink, teleport 3 to 10 meters in a random direction, random distance, and after you use it you freeze for 2 full seconds. Almost nobody who picked him made it past the tutorial, but one guy did, Baek Yuseol. 10 years on that character, and he mastered it so hard he controlled the direction, the distance, and figured out how to skip the freeze penalty entirely. And when the devs dropped a final boss nobody could beat, a dragon that cancels magic, which everyone online said had to be bugged, our boy looked at the worst character in the game and saw an opportunity. 10 years of muscle memory versus the strongest thing in the game. He wins. He's about to type GG in the community tab, absolutely glowing, when the system messages start stacking up. Wrong ending. 90% of Aetherworld destroyed. Please reach the true ending. Bro, what? He doesn't even get to be confused about it, because the screen goes white and his body hits the floor. He wakes up on cold ground with no idea where he is. Then he notices a mirror nearby, walks over to it, and to his surprise, he now looks exactly like his favorite character, the trashiest one of them all. Then suddenly, a system screen pops up, saying, Episode 1, Escape Your Pursuers. That is, as Baek remembers the prologue quest for this awful character. In his pocket, he finds an acceptance certificate for Stella Academy. Even though it's hard to believe, he finally accepts that he's inside Ethan World, in the body of his favorite character, the one nobody likes, the worst of them all. But this isn't the time to panic. He needs to think about that last red message telling him to reach the true ending. As far as Baek knows, the game never had a true ending, just multiple endings, so he figures maybe no one in the last 10 years ever managed to reach the real one. Still, now's not the time to focus on that, because if he remembers right after his character wakes up, the people chasing him break in. Outside, a group of unknown men is already approaching through the snow, so Baek moves as fast as he can, thinking they're already here. And then this guy here with that beautiful face, my god, what a handsome man, spots a nearby cabin and orders his men to search it. That puts Baek in a pretty bad spot, because he knows there's only so much he can do to avoid them, and there's no way he can fight them all. Before he can even decide what to do, another system screen appears and tells him he can use his teleport skill. That confuses Baek, since the system is saying he can actually use that magic now. Like I said before, this trash character only has one skill, teleportation. His body suffers from mana leakage syndrome, so he can't store mana at all, and that's the very skill Baek spent 10 years mastering. With that said, back to the present. Now Baek really can use the ability himself. There it is, along with all its details. But he runs into a problem. How is he supposed to use it now when he used to rely on a mouse and keyboard? Still, there's no time to overthink it because the squad is already charging in, ready to take him out. That catches Baek off guard since he didn't think they were that close already. Even without knowing how to use the skill, he has to try. Because whether he likes it or not, it's the only thing he's got. Now we cut to the squad chasing him. They're caught off guard when someone suddenly slips right past them. So one of them speeds up and goes after our Baek. Meanwhile, Baek runs for his life. He knows the men chasing him have magic boots, so they're faster than he is. That leaves him with only one way out. Teleporting. Even though he still has no clue how to use it here. Still, he tells himself that part doesn't matter. He's used this skill countless times, so somehow it'll work. After 10 years with this terrible character, he at least knows the perfect timing for it. Right then, the squad is already closing in. That forces Baek to move even faster. The worst part about teleporting is simple. If you mess up the distance, you slam into something and die on the spot. Before he can even finish explaining that to himself, he nearly runs out of breath trying to keep up and figure out how the skill works in real life. Then one of the men gets right behind him, ready to strike without warning. This is the moment. He has to use his skill now, so he activates jump. In an instant, he opens space between himself and the pursuer. Just like that, he's out of reach. Baek is thrilled. He actually pulled it off. Quick note, I'm calling teleportation jump because it's shorter and I'm not saying teleport every 5 seconds. Anyway, back to it. A few of the men are stunned by what Baek just did, but there's no time to freeze. Baek knows the chase is still on. Before he can settle down, the men are already wondering how he's moving like that, while Baek focuses on not making a single mistake. Right now, even one small error could kill him, so he tries to use the rough ground to his advantage. At this point in the game, nobody here can use flash, so they can't instantly catch him. As long as he keeps moving, he still has a shot. Almost nobody who picked this character even made it past the tutorial. And the tiny number who did still couldn't master jump's distance well enough to chain it over and over. Now he counts it down. 3, 2, 1, jump. Baek carefully measures each move, pushing this skill as far as it can go. Even the chasing squad is shocked by how well he's using it. So they order the mages to move up front. And just like that, the mage unit steps in. That immediately grabs Baek's attention. This is the second part of his character's brutal tutorial. He has to dodge the magic arrows flying at him by using jump. Back in the game, this part was easy because he could see their path on a screen. Doing it in first person is a whole different story. But before that can hit him, another system screen appears. His mana leak syndrome is active, along with its linked skills, Sixth Sense and Cognitive Acceleration. Those support skills kick in for Baek right away. Just before the arrows can hit, they help him dodge every single shot coming his way. Then the last arrow comes straight for his neck. He braces himself and uses jump perfectly to escape the attack. Baek resets his stance and narrowly avoids that heavy strike from the squad. He lets out a breath and realizes that was way too close, but he can't relax. He still has to escape. In his head, he knows what comes next. Part 3 of this awful tutorial. He has to cross a ravine using jump. The only way across is perfect control over the skill's distance. If he makes it, he'll reach a passing group of mages and finally get out. That would clear the tutorial. To pass this section, he has to cancel the skill within 0.1 seconds. Miss it and he dies. There are around 20 floating stones, so that 0.1 second timing has to be exact. Even while thinking whoever designed this tutorial had to be insane, he knows it can be done, because he spent 10 years playing this character. The only problem is this, the squad is almost on him, so it's not just about using jump perfectly. If the skill doesn't kill him, the men behind him will. Baek quickly judges the gap about 100 meters. Jump has a 3-second cooldown, and that isn't enough to cross safely, which means his only way to survive now is to stand his ground. He gets ready, realizing his best chance might be taking all of them down himself. With that in mind, Baek shifts into position. Even he knows this is crazy, because this isn't just a game anymore, it's real. In the game, losing a fight was one thing. Here he's decided to wipe out the whole squad. Still, one thought crosses his mind. The idea of taking a life doesn't seem to shake him at all. And part of the reason he's doing this now is because he knows beating the whole squad will earn him something. That thought becomes his push to finish them all. So he pulls out his dagger, then he steps right in front of them. The squad rushes him as fast as they can. Baek just in panic, he settles into his stance. One of the men charges straight at him with everything he's got, but at the exact moment Baek uses his skill, the attacker is completely caught off guard. So is everyone else watching. Baek isn't weak at all. He drops the guy with ease. That's the end of him. And in that moment, the guy who until yesterday was just a normal player grinding this trash character for years feels blood running over his fingers, and strangely, he doesn't feel guilty. After that, he drives the blade into the man's throat. He tells himself there's no room for guilt. This is survival, and if he wants to live, he has to kill them first. Then he kicks the corpse away. The body flies toward the others. Before they can react, Baek rushes in first and cuts through them at close range. Just when he thinks the next attack will be easier, a small doubt hits him. Why did everything suddenly go quiet? He looks back and realizes they haven't given up. They only stopped to cast magic. The mages finish preparing their spell under their leader's order, and fire. The attack races toward Baek and catches him off guard. With it nearly on top of him, he knows he has to use his skill right away. He spots the exact moment to move and activates jump. A second later, the spell slams into the ground and explodes. The men already think they've won. They're sure there's no way Baek escaped that, but they forgot one thing. Baek is the main character here. A hit like that this early in the story isn't stopping him. And before they realize it, here he comes, flying back in to show everyone who's really in control. And to remind that guy he's just a side character. The moment the enemy notices, Baek uses jump again. He moves so fast the man doesn't even notice when he's been cut. The others can only stare, confused about what just happened. Meanwhile, Baek keeps slicing through them one after another. No hesitation, even the squad leader is shocked. He sees his men dead while Baek is still standing. Baek is clearly exhausted, breathing hard, but even so, he thinks only 2 enemies are left. He knows he has to finish this before those last 2 reach him. One of them calls Baek strange, saying he's way too fast for a mage. Then he asks what kind of mage Baek really is. And honestly, Baek's reaction speed is better than a pro gamer's, but that was only ever inside a game. Now he realizes he can't keep dodging forever, especially against close-range attacks, so he charges both of them, deciding to end this as fast as possible. The other man raises his guard, gives a small laugh, and says he's figured out how Baek fights. Watching Baek move, he concludes that all he has is his skill and a dagger. So as long as he protects his vital spots, he's sure victory is his. Just as Baek rushes him, the guy uses his skill right away. Then he yells for Baek to come at him. Baek takes the bait and gets ready to use his own skill. The moment that guy casts an ice wave at Baek, he laughs. Sure, Baek is done for. But Baek was never aiming at him. He went for the mage beside him and cuts him down in seconds. That leaves the other guy shocked. He can't believe it, asking how someone who was just running for his life could pull that off. Baek answers with total confidence. Smiling, he thanks the guy and says chasing him this whole time helped him sharpen his skills. That only makes the man even madder. He shouts that he'll finish Baek for good. But before he can finish talking, Baek moves. His attack lands and Baek's shot hits cleanly. When the man tries to reset and prepare his next move, Baek is gone. That catches him completely off guard. Then the instant he notices Baek's strike is already hitting him from behind. Just like that, the worst character's tutorial stage ends, and Baek escapes alive. Not just that, he wipes out every pursuer. So of course, here comes the XP. And extra rewards too. After all that fighting, he can barely stay standing and nearly collapses from exhaustion. His breathing turns heavy, and his hands won't stop shaking. Then he looks beside him and realizes something. He just arrived in this world, and now blood is running over his fingers. People died because of him. At last, it really sinks in. Using his skill for the first time, his first real battle and his first kill, none of it was fake. This world is real, and along with surviving, he now has to carry the weight of taking a life. Still, this isn't the time to stay here. He needs to move. But before leaving, something near the bodies catches his eye. Even if it feels wrong, he has to be practical and search for anything valuable. He needs money, and he actually finds a pretty big amount, around 2 million yuans. Even so, his biggest problem now is the same as before, crossing this huge mountain with his skill. So he heads to the summit, thinking it through. Then a voice suddenly cuts into his thoughts. Someone asks if anybody is there. Right in front of him, he spots a group calling out to him. He quickly realizes it's the tutorial mages. Not wanting to miss the chance, he shouts back that he's here and alive. From the other side, they ask if Baek can get across, and he says he'll find a way. After that, they tell him they'll wait for him. One of them points out it should be nearly impossible to cross that cliff unless he's a third-class knight. But then, to everyone's surprise, they watch Baek use his jumper skill to cross the gap. The whole group is left wide-eyed, while Baek just keeps jumping from spot to spot. His move leaves them stunned, and they start wondering what kind of skill that even is. Teleportation? That's the guess from a mysterious voice. A girl's voice, to be exact. After hearing that, Baek keeps showing everyone he's no joke. The others can only stare in disbelief. Then he notices 2 unfamiliar people farther back. For a second, he wonders if they're with the group. But that thought ends fast when he sees them preparing an attack aimed straight at him. A moment later, they fire. Baek is caught off guard, and barely dodges with his skill. Once he sees them clearly, he realizes those 2 are the mercenaries who are after him. His skill has a 3-second cooldown, so dodging every spell they throw is impossible. That means he has to reach the next floating rock as fast as he can without relying only on the skill. But before he can, another spell flies at him and grazes his face. He's lucky to avoid the worst of it. Still, his luck runs out when the rock under him cracks. Then it drops. He tries to move fast enough to save himself, but he's already falling and every floating stone is too far away. With no other choice, he uses his skill as his only shot to survive. It works, pulling him close to another floating rock, his last hope. He manages to grab onto it. Hanging over the abyss, he lets out a shaky breath and tells himself he made it. Or maybe not. Another magic attack comes flying right at him. For a second, Baek thinks he's dead, but no, a huge bolt appears out of nowhere and blocks the hit like a shield. That sudden save keeps Baek from getting blasted off, and honestly, this whole moment looks amazing. He was one step from falling to his death, but someone really did save him. Now he wonders where that magic came from. At first it looked like ice, but it was clearly lightning. What shocks Baek most is how exact the spell was. Perfect aim, no wasted mana. He starts wondering who cast it. When he looks toward the mages, one girl stands out, a blue-haired girl with a cold look, holding her staff like she means business. The mercenaries panic right away, then run with their tails tucked between their legs. Thanks to that overpowered savior, Baek lives, even while hanging off the edge. A little later, once he's back on solid ground, he rejoins the group of mages and they welcome him. Soon, the girl who saved him gets his attention. Baek walks over to thank her for saving his life. She barely reacts, telling him there's no need to thank her, and he shouldn't worry about it. Baek can only answer with a simple, "Alright then." Baek is already thrown off by his first meeting with her, mostly because her voice is way prettier than he expected. Putting that aside, the group that attacked him is known for raiding nearby villages. But in truth, a lot of what they do is tied to the Shadow Demon cult. Even so, Baek figures his dealings with that ugly group end here. Then a system screen appears in front of him. It tells him to enroll in the Stella Academy. That catches his attention. It sounds like the next big step, but at least it doesn't seem too hard. Then reality hits. He's already in his 20s and now he has to go back to school. Hours later, inside the mage's carriage, Baek is so tired he's already out cold. In his sleep, he dreams about the past of the weak character he took over, back when he was a child with his mother. He sees her warm smile as he tells her that one day he'll become a great mage. After all, both his father and mother worked so hard to give him that magic book. Because of that, he studied with everything he had, hoping to become a mage and make them proud. It's a sweet memory, a kind mother caring for her son. But not everything stays happy. That was also the day his whole world fell apart. Right after he learned he had mana leakage syndrome. He refused to believe it could happen to him after working so hard to become a mage. That crushed dream could only come out one way, through tears. Baek wakes from sleep with those memories now inside him. The headache hits too. Then he notices something else. The sun is up, and morning has come. One of the others gets Baek's attention and tells him they'll soon arrive at the satellite city of Arcanian. Before reaching it though, they'll stop once to take a short break. Baek stretches after waking up, but then he notices the girl who saved him earlier has been watching him. That leaves him confused. Maybe he just isn't used to being ignored by a pretty girl like her. In the end, Baek's just like everybody else. So here's a quick look at this world. Magic is normal, cities are protected, and people travel long distances on trains and flying ships. With that in mind, Yuseol thinks about where he's headed next. He'll board one of those airships in Lysanidia on the way to Arcanian. And that leads to where the real story begins. Arcanian, the city of magic, home to famous magic towers, magic knights, and 5 top academies. The strongest mages and most talented students gather at Star Academy, a place packed with geniuses and nobles from all over the world. That makes him wonder how this weak character ever got accepted into a school like that. Still, first things first, time to check his abilities. These are the skills he has. The biggest one is Sixth Sense. It uses mental power to detect mana within 12 meters. Then there's Detection Acceleration, and seeing those skills makes him feel a lot better, because without them, he'd already be dead. But there's still one huge problem. The cursed skill called Mana Leakage Syndrome. That curse is permanent, and it's one of the main reasons everyone treated this character like trash. Even so, the curse lets him sense mana around him with Sixth Sense. It also helps him notice incoming attacks even when he isn't looking, while Detection Acceleration makes everything seem almost slowed down. Those are the key abilities keeping Yuseol alive. He still can't use mana, and he can't keep Sixth Sense active for long either. It burns through his mental strength and hits him hard afterward. Now for his stats, they're basically like this. Looking at them, the protagonist figures, starting over at the beginning of a game isn't the worst thing. In this world, there isn't just one level. Each stat and skill has its own growth. Skills use levels, while stats use stars. 9 stars is the highest a stat can reach, but that's almost impossible. Even after playing for 10 years, Yuseol only ever got up to 8 stars in vigor and sensitivity. So he plans to do what worked in his past life, focus on sensitivity for now, to boost Sixth Sense and reaction speed, then raise vigor and flexibility some other way. But his biggest issue is still the mana leak. If he doesn't fix it, he knows he won't live long. That means he needs to level up Secretive Nature as fast as possible. And the way to strengthen that lies in Star Academy. So if MC wants to survive this world and deal with his syndrome, he has no choice but to go there. Even so, he can't help thinking it's a pain. It would be nice if there were some other way. Just then system notifications appear, but before he can check them, someone calls for him to hurry up, so he puts it off for later, and heads to the carriage. All the while, that calm girl with the pretty voice keeps watching Yuseol. A few hours later, they're on the flying ship. He quickly draws attention because he looks like it's his first time on one. Some people even start calling him a country bumpkin. Then one of them walks over and says, "The most famous academy in the world is being stained by someone like Yuseol." The protagonist hears all the insults and does what? Nothing. Smart move. No point wasting energy on trash talk. While MC just thinks the whole thing is childish, the other guy starts losing his temper. But before he can do anything, something grabs everyone's attention. Not something, a person. A silver-haired girl with red eyes named Abdulavit. She doesn't just walk in, she owns the room. The loudmouth from before immediately tries to approach her, but he gets shut down fast with nothing more than a cold glance. That's all it takes. Then she simply walks away, ignoring the others completely. She passes right by Yuseol, and even he has to admit she's stunning. But looks aside, he knows Abdulavit is the villain of this world. She's one of the main characters, and she's always clashing with the heroine. No matter what route you choose in the game though, she always dies in the end, and every death is brutal. In some endings, everyone at the academy turns on her before she's expelled. In others, she's bullied. And in another route, she goes through something so humiliating she never appears in public again. It's almost like the game's creators were determined to make her suffer, no matter what. Because of that, Yuseol thinks of her as one of the game's most memorable characters. And yeah, she really is beautiful. Before he can finish that thought, though, it's time to eat. So he heads off to find something and fill his stomach. Too bad everything here is insanely expensive, and the protagonist is flat broke. But before he can get any food, a loud signal rings out, and everyone is told they'll reach the next stop in 1 minute. They're ordered to head to the first floor, because Arcanian is only 10 minutes away. It's finally happening. Feeling nervous but firm, Yuseol tells himself this is his reality now, so he'll do what he has to do. Nice speech, but then reality hits again. Sure, he wants to do everything he can to reach the end of this world, but with a sigh, he wonders if he can really survive Star Academy. Worse than that, can he survive this world at all, especially as the weakest character in the whole game? Right then, Yuseol finds himself wishing he had something to help. That makes him remember the earlier notifications, so he finally checks them. It turns out the reward gives him 3 choices: a weakened version of his old game items, a downgraded skill he used before, or last but not least, experience. Now MC seriously thinks over which one he should take. After a bit, he leans toward choosing some items. But the system messages make a lot of options unavailable. He tries different ones, yet gets the same answer every time. That makes him wonder why everything is so heavily nerfed. The system says his narrative power isn't strong enough yet for those things to fully appear, which basically means it's still way too early for him to become overpowered. Since he's still a beginner and this is only the start, Yuseol goes quiet for a moment, then decides to take Boo Boo's glasses. This time the system accepts it, and just like that, the item is given to him. Now with the item in hand, he thinks he never expected he'd actually use something like this. These glasses store all the information he gathered while playing the game. Monster records, learned knowledge, and all kinds of useful data players kept track of. So he puts the glasses on. And there it is, Boo Boo's glasses and their details. With them equipped, he opens the folders. Inside, all his saved knowledge is neatly sorted by topic. In other words, it's a very handy way for Yuseol to know what happened, or what's about to happen in this world. And honestly, it's a huge help. There was no way he could remember every quest he'd ever done, but with these glasses, he can recover a big part of the knowledge he had as a player. But enough of that, because look who's coming by, that quiet bookworm girl, the eldest daughter of the traitor Deathmoth, Azel. Because she's the child of a traitor, everyone is judging her. That's what Yuseol decides to call her for now. And sure enough, people keep staring and whispering about her. Just seeing her pass by catches the protagonist's attention too, so he uses the moment to test his glasses, since they also store information on characters. The file on Azel labels her with the title False Heroine, and there's a reason the game gave her that title. The game Etherworld was based on a fantasy novel called Don't Love the Princess, where Azel was the original heroine. After facing Adulnavit, the novel's villain, she ends up with the male lead, but in the game there's another heroine instead. Basically the usual isekai type, someone who reincarnated into the world of that novel called Flame. Yeah, there's another person here from the real world, just like Baek. The difference is she came from a manhwa while he was just a game addict who got dropped into a game world that's also part of a manhwa story. Weird, but that's the idea. So Baek realizes that while Gazelle ends up branded as the fake heroine Flame, the possessed lead rises as the real heroine of the game. And just like Deli, Gazelle is doomed to die in every route, even knowing that Baek doesn't really care. As far as he's concerned, it has nothing to do with him. Still, when he looks at Gazelle, something feels oddly familiar. He starts wondering where he's seen her before, then he brushes it off, figuring he's probably imagining things. A few hours later, it's time for Estella Academy. The new students are all gathered in the schoolyard. Someone is giving a speech, but Baek couldn't care less. What matters is what comes next. The most important people in this world, game and novel finally show up. To Baek, their grand entrance feels like the usual over-the-top hero moment. Flowers, praise, all that stuff. But out of all of them, one stands out the most. It's the representative of the Kairos, the absurdly overpowered Maya Seong, who I'll be calling Mateus. The moment he sees Mateus, Manu Baek starts thinking about him. To him, Mateus is that kind of untouchable character who stands above everyone else. And no, I'm not making that up. That really is a direct reference. Bonroy clearly threw in a nod to Gojo there. So with that in mind, because Mateus is just that powerful, Manu Baek decides he needs to avoid the bad endings from here on, and getting Mateus on his side will be a huge part of that. But there's one problem. A lot of this depends on Flame and what she does next. That's what Manu Baek is thinking as he watches her closely. Since she came from the same kind of reality as he did, he knows things could get messy, so he doesn't want to take big risks. Even though they're both real people who came to this world, his character is basically trash, worse than an NPC, so getting close to Flame won't be easy. On top of that, she has the special power to purify demonic humans, but as we already saw with Giselle and Deli, she also brings disaster to the people around her. That's why he has to be careful about how he deals with her. Getting too close could be dangerous, so he decides his role in this world should be simple, support the main characters from a distance. He tells himself he'll stay out of their lives as much as possible, though honestly, I seriously doubt that lasts. With that, the freshman entrance ceremony comes to an end. And just like that, episode 2, the entrance to Estella Academy, wraps up. After the ceremony, it's time for class. Manu Baek thinks it feels strange becoming a student again after already finishing college in his past life. Still, having that watch helps a lot. It's Estella's pocket watch, a student ID that also gives access to all kinds of perks. Naturally, Manu Baek plans to make full use of those perks right away. Then a teacher walks into the classroom carrying the test papers. He tells everyone to put away their things and take off their glasses for inspection. And yeah, remember the part about the glasses. This academy wastes no time. They start with placement tests right after the entrance ceremony. With the teacher fired up, the exams begin. These tests will decide which class each student gets placed in. Once the papers are handed out, Manu Baek immediately realizes he has no clue how to answer this thing. This is the exam that sorts students from Class F all the way to Class S. And of course, most of the playable characters will end up in Class S. As for Manu Baek, he entered the academy dead last, so he's sure he's headed straight to Class F. He even wonders if messing this up badly enough could get him kicked out. While he's lost in those thoughts, something catches his eye. One student is already done with the test. He looks completely bored. That student is Maya Seong. Manu Baek can't help but admire how fast Mateus finished. Then again, for someone like him, everything probably feels dull and easy. And yeah, I'm sticking with calling Maya Seong Mateus. Mateus isn't just one of the strongest people in the world. If one word defines him, it's boredom. He's also insanely smart and talented beyond anyone else. Seeing that, Manu Baek starts wondering how the heroine of this game will affect Mateus and change his choices. In some routes, Mateus joins the demonic humans, which is obviously a disaster for everyone. Manu Baek figures one of the biggest reasons for that is his family. But that can wait. Right now, the test comes first, so he thinks about using his glasses here. He relied on them a lot while playing, and maybe they still have the information he needs. He quietly starts pulling them from his pocket, just planning to test it. Remember when I told you to pay attention to the glasses? Well, this is why the teacher immediately asks Manu Baek what kind of glasses those are. That reminds him the teacher had already warned everyone that glasses would be checked, so the teacher takes Manu Baek's glasses and gives them a quick inspection. Keep in mind, these glasses are basically a plot device. They hold exact information for Manu Baek, which honestly works way better than a protagonist somehow remembering every tiny thing from his past. You know the type, guys, who remember everything for no reason. Because of that, Manu Baek starts worrying now that his little plot device glasses are being examined. But then, to his horror, the system alerts him that parts of the glasses are returning and asks if he wants to summon them. Obviously, no chance. The teacher then hands the glasses back and says there's nothing wrong with them. So moving on, thanks to that narrative cheat. Seriously, I'd love a pair of glasses like that myself. Life would be way easier. Manu Baek gets excited, thinking this might be enough to carry him into Class S. Then he goes back to the test and time's up. So yeah, he may have his plot device tricks, but that doesn't mean the story is on his side. Just like that, his hopes of escaping Class F are gone. While the papers are being collected, Manu Baek realizes he only answered 3 questions. Then the teacher holding the exams notices something strange. He quickly heads over to Manu Baek and asks for the glasses again. Manu Baek is completely thrown off. The teacher studies the glasses once more, muttering to himself that this should be impossible. That draws a student's attention, and he orders someone to call another professor. Now with Manu Baek's glasses in hand, the other professor arrives, engineering magic professor Dr. Grian. After checking things over, he says Manu Baek answering those questions really is suspicious, but he didn't cheat. He flat out tells Manu Baek that he solved them with his own brain. After that, Dr. Grian leaves, even congratulating him and saying he did well. The first teacher politely apologizes to Manu Baek for the whole mess. Manu Baek says it's fine, even though he feels guilty because yeah, he absolutely did cheat. Now let's switch locations. Over in Professor Lee's office, that same teacher is there, still bothered by this year's test results. Then a woman catches his attention. She asks if those are this year's student exams in his hands. It's Professor Delta Man. With a bright smile, she says she heard this year's freshmen are especially interesting. She mentions the princess from the most famous fire magic family, Jeremy Scarlvin, the heir caught up in the struggle for the throne, and Ian, successor to the master of the magic tower. All of them come from powerful elite families, so naturally this year's test was bound to be interesting. Professor Lee gives a small smile. Turns out he likes having his work praised too. Still, this year's exam included a new kind of question. The first three were problems normal students shouldn't have been able to solve. That was the whole point. In fact, those three questions mattered more than the rest of the test. The first one measured flexibility. It was meant to confuse students by asking something they'd never learned from a book. The age when magic was all about memory and theory is over. Now it's about battle, quick choices, and creative thinking. That's why those questions were made. Those questions were so hard that out of 1,141 students, 1,000 left them blank. Only a few answered them. Matali, Flame, who got into the academy on the principal's recommendation, and finally Banawik. The teacher thought the test would crush him, but he proved him wrong. Professor Lee thinks Matali and Flame are real geniuses, but Baek had no score worth noticing before this, so he never expected him to solve those questions. That's when the other teacher cuts in and asks why he's so focused on those exams. There's a lot going on here, so here's the short version. Baek answered all three special questions, and that changed everything. Because of that, Baek proved he was far more capable than anyone thought. He answered only the three hardest questions on the whole test and left everything else blank. So even though he wanted to stay unnoticed at this school, he solved three questions he barely even understood, all because of his glasses. Then he was shocked. His name had been placed in Class S. That class is the top class in the whole academy. Now Baek is stuck there, thinking this will only drag him closer to the main characters. In his mind, getting involved with people like that will only shorten his life in this world, so he decides to keep a low profile and avoid attention. He leaves, fully convinced that's what he's going to do. Of course, that plan is already falling apart, because someone becomes interested in Baek. With that, we move to another place. There, Baek gets slapped across the face. The hit comes from the fire mage Hong Ye. She yells at Bia for missing three questions on the exam. Then she says even insects answered those questions, which means Bia is worse than an insect. Bia just stands there, quiet, with a sad look and the slap mark still on her face. And the one saying all this is her own mother. Her mother demands to know what kind of state her daughter is in. She warns Bia not to end up like her, a woman chased out of her kingdom and now stuck in the miserable role of a teacher. She puts all that weight on Bia, saying she must never become a disgrace to her kingdom. Then she steps closer, lifts Bia's face, and stares her in the eyes, telling her to become someone greater than her sister. With a twisted smile, she asks if Bia understands. Bia says yes, but inside she's saying no. She only knows how to live the way she was taught. She only solves problems she was trained for. If it's something she never learned, a spell, a formula, anything unfamiliar, she can't handle it. All of that feeds her doubt about herself and who she is right now. And those feelings soon turn into pain, pressure, and fear. All of it finally becomes tears. She tells herself she doesn't understand her sister, doesn't understand why she had to suffer, and doesn't understand why she's being tormented like this. For now, we leave that pain behind and go back to Bulk, who now has a pounding headache. He can't figure out why he got put in Class S. Around him, he hears whispers, asking why he's even there. Bulk gloomily thinks that he came into this world alone, and will leave it alone too. As far as he can tell, he's already an outsider at this academy. Still, the gossip around him won't last long, because another student from Class A will soon move up to Class S. But what really grabs his attention is how strange it feels to see, right in front of him, people who were just game characters until yesterday. In a few years, most of the students in this class will be famous all over the world, and around 5 of them may one day betray the magic world. Matale is one of them. And the one who might stop that, or help cause it, is Flame. Baek thinks she has to keep that future from happening. Just then, the teacher enters the room. He walks up front and formally introduces himself to the class. He's the instructor for Class S, Professor Lee. Professor Lee says this year's class has many talented students, and one especially unusual one, Baek. And just like that, Baek's academy life begins, along with everyone else's. With that done, class is about to start. But before the lesson begins, someone arrives late. It's Baya, and the redness on her face and her swollen eyes are hard to miss. That makes Baya pause, because Baya being late doesn't feel normal. He watches her speak with the teacher from a distance while thinking something is definitely wrong. So he falls back on his usual trick and puts on his special glasses to check what's going on. Then the information appears, and the key part is this. Baya is a villain with fire magic who sometimes burns herself. She has a terrible mother, and her death is guaranteed. Seeing that, Baya thinks something about it can't be right, especially the part saying her death is certain. He remembers that because of Flame, Yuseol and Baya are supposed to die, and sadly that really is the usual fate of a villain like Baya. Baek even thinks he'd like to save her if he could, but he knows he's not in any position to help anyone, so all he can do is feel bad and watch Baya from afar. But that distance doesn't last long, because to his surprise, a certain girl walks straight over to Baek. And yes, it's her. Baek stops in front of him and stares at him coldly. Baek is completely lost. Without a word, she sits down right next to him, which only makes things weirder. Baek wonders what is happening, and starts thinking the story of this game may already be going off the rails. Then class resumes, and Professor Lee announces the staff succession ceremony, where students will receive the staves they'll use at the academy. He says Class S and Class A will attend together. Hearing that, Baek gives a faint smile. He finds it annoying, but he's still looking forward to it. There are two major events at Star Academy. One is the familiar contract ceremony, and the other is the staff succession ceremony. Once everyone arrives, Professor Lee explains that the staves there range from low class to upper middle class, and he tells the students to get ready and choose. But Baek knows that at this event, you don't choose the staff chooses you. In this world, a staff only answers someone worthy of it through resonance, so it comes to you, not the other way around. Baek walks around, looking over the selection and wondering which one might suit him. Eventually, he notices a short staff and thinks it fits him best. Wands are usually used by knights who cast quick magic, while staves are for priests who focus power into a single strike with a longer cast time. While everyone is busy talking about staves, someone comes up to Baek. It's some guy Baek doesn't care about at all, and that feeling is very much mutual on Baek's side. The boy asks what kind of staff Baek plans to take, and Baek basically says any of them will do. Then the guy tells Baek he should pick a staff that matches his status as a commoner. While the guy keeps trying to put him down, Baek just brushes him off with a calm reply and walks away as fast as he can. The other boy is left standing there, looking like his own taunt just blew up in his face. That's Baek for you. The funny part is, Baek really has no idea who that guy even is, so he checks with his usual skill. Then the info pops up, and the only thing that really matters is how minor this guy is. Baek can only stare and wonder just how unimportant this poor extra really is. The guy says he's taking that staff, and Baek doesn't bother stopping him. That one is Edmund Adalik's staff. It's a mid-high grade weapon, usually used by skilled magic fighters. Besides Edmund Adalik's staff, there's another mid-high grade one here too, but that one is only for display, not for students to choose. Then following the professor's order, everyone starts trying the staffs. One student steps up first, then another gives it a shot, and then another one after that. Pretty soon everyone's taking turns. As the students talk about all the famous people who got amazing staffs before, this guy doesn't want to be left behind. So he walks up to Edmund Adalik's staff and stands right in front of it, while everyone watches. Then he reaches for the staff, rejected. Just like everyone expected, he fails. That's because this staff already has someone it belongs to. A moment later, someone else steps forward. He heads straight for the staff everyone's been talking about. And that person is none other than, yes, really, our guy Mateus, the one with the top-tier plot armor. While Mateus stands there, people start whispering again, wondering if even he with all his talent can really claim Edmund Adalik's staff. Then he reaches out and without any struggle at all, the staff accepts him. No surprise there. Edmund Adalik's staff now has a new owner, and it's Mateus. That instantly grabs everyone's attention. Baek can tell this proves to everyone just how gifted Mateus really is. But then, when Baek notices something, he gets confused. For some reason, Mateus gives Baek a small, friendly smile, and Baek is just left thinking, what was that? Flame also gets a powerful staff, the Teravan staff. That was the one meant to be available here. But this is where the story can split. If Flame gets that staff, Mage becomes interested in her talent, and her route begins. If she doesn't, then a completely different route starts instead. That's why Baek needs to make sure Flame gets that staff. So he keeps his eyes on her as she approaches a staff. Of course, it's Flame, the main heroine of this game. The staff is right in front of her. Baek watches closely, wondering what she'll do next. It's kind of funny. Flame reincarnated into a character from her favorite novel, while Baek ended up as a trash character in his favorite dating sim. If this ever gets an anime, it'd probably change everything and make it look like some other reincarnated protagonist story from Baek's point of view. Anyway, back to the moment. While watching Flame, Baek keeps silently cheering her on, telling her to hurry up and take the staff. Instead, Flame ignores it completely, which opens a different route. That leaves Baek wondering if she just doesn't want that staff, and if she goes after a different one, things could get bad, so he starts to worry. He tenses up and gets ready to use his skill. Then he jumps in. In seconds, he's right next to Flame. That's one way to make an entrance. Flame is startled. He wasn't there a second ago, so she has no idea when he showed up. Baek politely asks which staff she plans to choose, and she immediately asks why he wants to know. He says he just wants to help, but she only gives him a side glance and tells him to mind his own business. Then she turns away and leaves him there. Baek can only stand there, feeling completely shut down. Still, something feels off. Flame is supposed to be kind and friendly with everyone, so he can't understand why she's being so cold. So he calls out to her again, saying one more time that he's only trying to help, but for some reason Flame keeps treating him harshly. Baek keeps pushing, saying a few more things until she finally snaps and angrily asks what he could possibly know about staffs. Now Baek is totally lost, wondering what he did wrong. He even starts thinking maybe she just doesn't like side characters. Still, He points out a certain staff and tells Flame she can wield it. It's the staff that's supposed to lead to the good route in the game, but while Baek is trying to explain, something happens. Something rushes straight toward him at crazy speed, and that something is the very staff meant for the friendly route with Mateus. It suddenly chooses its owner, and that owner is Baek. Fate completely played him. Baek panics, wondering how this thing ended up in his hand. As for Flame, that smile on her face says everything. Baek is cooked, and Baek just stands there in shock. After the event ends and everyone heads back to their dorms, Flame walks around the academy, hearing gossip from all sides about the commoner who got a mid-high rank wand. Some are also talking about a mage who uses teleportation magic, which in this world has a terrible reputation. Surrounded by all that talk, Flame feels strangely uneasy. Later in the academy study hall, she walks through the halls in silence, a little annoyed because all anyone talked about today was Baek. Even now, she still can't believe it really happened. She keeps asking herself how Baek managed to get Yvonne and who he really is. After all, Flame read this novel many times before coming to this world, and she never once saw a character named Baek Yuseol. The novel said it was impossible to wield that wand, so she starts thinking to herself, maybe Baek was just trying way too hard to show off in front of her. And that misunderstanding only keeps growing. Still, she tells herself there's no point overthinking it. Then some other girls call out to her. A cheerful trio asks if she's on her way to study. Flame puts on a smile and chats with them for a bit. What stands out most is how often she speaks with a calm, mature attitude. That makes sense, since she was older before coming to this world. Then someone else catches her attention. It's Jackie. And honestly, Flame is being a little harsh here. Just because the girl dresses badly doesn't mean she has to think like that. Anyway, Flame says goodbye to the others and leaves, telling them they'll meet again later. As she walks down the hall, she suddenly bumps into someone. That person is a guy who brings a weird little tension into the moment. They talk for a bit, and then Yan notices something's wrong. He asks if something happened, since she doesn't seem like herself. That catches Flame off guard, and she wonders if he's actually worried about her. Even so, she says she's fine. Then he asks if she's going to study, and she says yes. Their different personalities make the conversation kind of funny, but then Yan stares at Flame for a moment, which makes her notice him more. Finally, he lightly touches her shoulder and gently says goodbye, telling her he'll see her later. After he leaves, Flame calls him cold, but before she can move on, something else catches her eye. Jackie from earlier is staring at Flame for some reason she can't understand. Flame calls out to her, and Jackie suddenly runs off. That leaves Flame confused. Then she reaches the extra study meeting. According to the novel, Flame knows that Gazelle and Bia are supposed to be part of this meeting. So as a fan of the story, she's excited to watch both the villainess and the heroine in action. She walks into the classroom and finds a pretty strange sight. A certain guy standing with Mateus and Gazelle. She realizes everyone is already here. With that, the meeting begins. Flame explains that this is a session for students who need to improve their grades. But one thing still keeps bothering her. Out of everyone in the room, what stands out most is Mateus acting weirdly friendly toward Baek, which is honestly surprising. So she starts wondering if maybe, just maybe, it's only a coincidence. Still, Flame starts thinking Baek is hiding something. Those 3 questions make it seem like he knew answering them right was all he needed to get into Class S. That leads her to one big thought. What if Baek knew the secret behind those questions? If so, then from Flame's point of view, he's dangerous. With that, we cut to Baek, who is basically begging to be saved from this awkward mess. Mateus is way too friendly with him, trying to learn more about him, while Baek just keeps wondering why this guy is so interested in him. Honestly, if nobody is already shipping these two after this, I'd be shocked. Anyway, class starts. This lesson is about going over the placement test questions while the teacher talks through them, and one thing catches attention. Mateus knows Baek got the lowest score in the ranking. Because of that, he wants to prove he's better than Baek, so the class keeps reviewing the test questions. But then Mateus makes that face like he's about to do something, and he does. He asks Baek whether his answer is right or not, with a bright, pushy smile on his face. Baek has no clue what he's talking about. Glasses or not, he's just as lost as ever. He doesn't even know what those 3 questions are. Even so, he answers honestly. He simply says he doesn't know, and murmurs spread through the room. Mateus gets annoyed while Baek is left confused. Then Baek is caught off guard when Mateus asks again if he's doing it wrong. This time, Mateus snaps and tells him to come up and solve it himself. Baek is like, what? And Mateus is already waiting. So yeah, Baek goes, he walks up to the board, and you can probably guess what's coming. Time for the glasses. Then he tackles the question, which feels more like a wordplay puzzle than a real test. For example, a mage casts a spell saying, "Dear Earth, shed tears," and then there's talk about double filth. What could that mean? Well, the answer is simple to Baek. If the Earth is crying, then it's in a state of decay. Even though Baek thinks these questions are ridiculous, he makes one thing clear. Mateus solved it the wrong way by forcing a math-based method onto it. So even if he landed on the right answer, it was just luck. If the question changed a little, he'd probably miss it. Baek says he can't show a full proper method for solving it, but he can point out the mistake. Then he asks, what if the question used water or wind instead of earth? Would that same method still work? In other words, Mateus only got it right by chance. And honestly, there's no arguing with that. After Baek answers and explains how the question is supposed to work, everyone starts writing down what he says. All of it. That is exactly what grabs Flame's attention. This should have been the moment Baek and Giseline joined in, but both of them are distracted instead. That makes Flame wonder if things are really supposed to go like this. After all that, Mateus says goodbye to Baek in a weirdly cheerful, excited mood. Baek, on the other hand, tells himself he can't get too involved with Mateus. Still, he figures the guy noticed him because of his staff, which is fair enough. Then his thoughts are interrupted when someone calls out to him. It's Bea. No matter how nice she looks, Baek doesn't want trouble, so he tries to walk past and keep moving. But then she comes over and stops him. Baek says she wants to ask him something. Why didn't he explain the solution earlier when they were talking about those questions? And that's the problem. It's not that Baek didn't want to explain it. He just couldn't. There was no clean way to logically explain a nonsense test. Seriously, it's like trying to solve a joke question with strict formulas. So thinking Bae might have misunderstood, he just says there wasn't really anything to explain. That catches her attention, and she says she understands, but she actually gets the wrong idea, assuming Baek just doesn't want to reveal his method in a place like this, so she says she'll reward him. Proudly, she lifts her head and tells Baek she'll make it worth his time, so he should explain everything he knows. And with that, we move to Baek and Bea talking. After briefly checking Bea's test, Baek sees she only missed 3 questions. That makes him wonder why she'd pay him just to explain those 3, so he asks if she's not embarrassed. Not at all. Bea says what's really embarrassing to her is not figuring out those answers herself. That surprises Baek, so he asks why she came to him specifically, hinting that she's a princess and should have plenty of people around her. But out of all 1,141 students, only 3 got those questions right. And here's the part everyone knew except Baek. Baek explains those were questions that weren't really meant to have answers. The only ones who answered them were Mateus, Flame, and Baek. So yeah, this was something literally everyone knew except Baek. That's when it finally hits him, why he was placed in Class S and also why Flame treated him so harshly. Baek doesn't know every detail about this world. He didn't even know about those strange questions. Flame is different. She read this novel over and over, so even without playing the game, she'd naturally understand this world, and probably those answers too. And now Baek, a background extra who wasn't even mentioned in the novel, has appeared and messed up her plans. No wonder he ends up with a headache while Flame is left thrown off too. After that, Baek brings up the reward. In a serious tone, he says he only wants one simple thing: trade his staff for a magic sword. Baek is confused and asks why, pointing out that only low-rank mercenaries usually use weapons like that. Baek just says he has his reasons, that it suits his style better. He doesn't want to explain his mana problem, so he just asks her for a yes or no. And to Baek's relief, we move on to the test explanation. The idea is pretty simple: change your perspective. One of Baya's biggest weaknesses is that she uses magic in a very textbook way, so she gets stuck on certain kinds of problems. She doesn't realize that, though, until her 2nd year, when she loses badly to Flame. Baez isn't going to hand her every answer, but he can at least nudge her in the right direction. So he uses silly quiz examples. One example is this: what is between one knee and another knee? After thinking from that angle, the answer is the letter E. Baez explains that between one knee and another knee, there's an E. Baez's reaction is basically pure disbelief. And honestly, Baek adds an important point. There are formulas and techniques she won't always know, so she has to use creativity to solve things. Then he asks if creativity can be memorized, which catches Baek off guard. Of course, the answer is no. Baek tells her that yes, she already knows many important spells and techniques, but for a mage, the most important thing is seeing beyond your limits. His words make it feel like a whole new world opens up for her. Magic can grow from even the smallest change, and while Baek is strong on technique, she's lacking in creativity. That said, Baek is more than a little bothered by what he says. Actually, she's very bothered. They talk a bit more, and even though Baek says she gets it all, Baek himself doesn't fully understand the nonsense coming out of his own mouth. Then comes another dumb riddle. What time is it? After thinking it over, her answer is 8 o'clock because if not sounds like 8 basically. Then he asks, what's the best tea for hair loss? The tea is a hat. It might be funny to some, but Baek does not find any of this funny at all. Still, one good thing came out of this. We got to see Abeline's adorable reactions. Then comes another weird riddle. What did the clouds say to the ocean while it was raining? After a moment, the answer comes in. I'm feeling a little oceany. And yeah, clap, clap, clap. I honestly didn't get that one either, so if you understand it, feel free to explain. What I do get is Abeline's smile. She's seriously too cute. Even Baek notices and keeps teasing her a little. Jokes aside, they spend hours doing these dumb word games and random questions. Before long, night falls. By then, Baek looks completely worn out. He ended up stuck in that game with her for 3 whole hours. Still, Abeline really is a talented mage with a sharp mind. Her problem is that she thinks too rigidly, and even if she's meant to be a villain, Baek still wants to help her, and I still can't help shipping them. Leaving that aside, we head somewhere else with Baek. He arrives at a small house out in the suburbs. Inside, it's an old unnamed used bookstore that's clearly falling apart. This place has the study notes of Mela, the top graduate from the academy 10 years ago, and Baek came here to find them for school. Then he spots it. But when he reaches for the book, his hand touches someone else's. It's a girl named Dizella, and she looks surprised to see Baek. She asks if he knows who she is. Of course he does. She's pretty well known. Dizella remembers him too. Just hearing his name was enough. She says she liked what he said during the meeting, and thought it was disappointing that he couldn't finish. That short exchange ends quickly, and she leaves just like that. She's clearly not very talkative. After that, Baek goes back to the book, but now he's curious about her. Why was she here? Well, the answer seems simple. Money. This shop mostly sells used books, so poor students come here, just like Baek. Since Dizella comes from a ruined family and lost everything, she probably didn't have many options. Her father was killed by dark demonic humans, and even Baek thinks that's tragic. A princess like her having to worry about book prices says a lot. On top of that, her ending in the story is miserable. You could even say Dizella is the most unfortunate character in the whole game, not because of what she does, but because of the fate waiting for her. Back in the bookstore, Baek ends up looking even more like a bookworm than she does. So he asks what's wrong, and when she's about to call him an idiot, she stops herself and just says he picked some very strange books. Baek definitely notices that almost insult, but he has his reasons. He says those books will make life at the academy easier soon enough. Then he leaves, while she stays behind trying to figure out what he meant. The next day, Dizella heads to class as usual, and notices that way more students are there than expected. She takes a seat, then quietly worries. More students means more competition. After class, she's still uneasy, stressed about lessons and enrollment. Then another problem hits. She's hungry. She starts thinking about getting something to eat, but she's so broke that even that seems hard. Then something catches her eye. It's Baek. More specifically, the academy genius himself. Baek. She wonders what he's doing there, and soon notices he's in a class with barely any students. That stands out, because a class like that could easily get cancelled. But then she realizes what he's doing. He's taking classes where getting good grades is easy, so she concludes he planned all this to make academy life much easier for himself. A few hours later, we find Baek in another class, and for some reason Dizella is sitting right next to him. For now, let's focus on the lesson about the divine moons, beings that sleep for 1,000 years. Long ago, even when he was just a player, Baek only managed to find 5 of the 12 divine moons. He pulled that off by gathering info from other players, and no one found more than he did. There are 12 in total, and since they likely connect to the true ending, he needs to track them down again. Somewhere else we move to another class. This one is taught by the fire element professor. Most of the lecture isn't important, so let's skip ahead. What matters here is that she's still as harsh as ever, and that cold look she's giving is aimed at her own daughter. After class, the girl sits alone, thinking she embarrassed herself in front of her mother again. She beats herself up. Sure, her mother must be disappointed. Then someone interrupts her thoughts with a gentle smile. The girl asks if she's okay, then sits beside her and says she looks sad. Our girl knows who she is. It's Shuro Ararangi, a new fire element genius who showed up recently. But she's not in the mood to talk. After a short exchange, she stands up and walks away. As she leaves, Shuro watches her with a cold expression. Later, back in her room, she still looks down. Then suddenly, someone gets her attention. It's Seno Bayan. I'll just call her Bianca. After serving Abeline some snacks, Bianca brings up Bayan's staff and says that based on its quality, it should be as valuable as a high-level magic sword. But there's a catch. To Abeline's surprise, that staff constantly drains its user's mana. She asks if it's some kind of demonic magic tool, but Bianca says it's a little different. Then Abeline wonders how such a shabby staff could be ranked so high. Bianca explains that it was originally made to greatly boost the user's mana and power, but because it keeps draining mana just from being held, its rank dropped. That answer shocks her, because that cheap-looking staff is actually high rank. What really gives Abeline a headache is the fact that this staff is even at the academy. It was only meant for display, not actual use, but of course Bayan took it anyway. After hearing all that, the only thing she can say is that Bayan really is a strange and one-of-a-kind person. A few days pass and classes continue. This time, the big thing is that PvP combat starts today. The lesson is about aiming, shooting, and battle form basics. But for Bayan, it's just plain boring. You can see it clearly, even if he doesn't say a word. That's why the teacher calls him up to the board, and you can already guess what happened. Just looking at the teacher's face says enough. After class, someone calls out to Bayan. It's Dizella, and that actually surprises him. She walks over seriously and says she has something to ask. While watching him, she realized Bayan is smarter than he first seemed. His earlier class choices proved it, and that caught her attention. At first she doubted him, but now she's sure he has a real strategy for studying. So she gets right to the point. She wants to know what class he's taking next so she can use that knowledge too. That definitely catches him off guard. He jokes and asks if she's hitting on him, but her answer is so cold it shuts that down instantly. She says every class he's been taking is one where it's easy to earn good grades, so she bluntly tells him to share his method. Bayan brushes it off, saying it was all just a coincidence. Then he turns to leave. She hesitates for a second before calling after him, but gathers the courage and shouts, stopping him in his tracks. She runs after him and says she needs to know what classes he picked. Her grades have to stay up to keep her scholarship. Baek already knows that if she loses that support, she's in real trouble. That makes him stop and think. As for her, she even tries using her looks to win Baek over, but it doesn't work, and that leads to this exchange. Still, pretty is pretty. She's not wrong about that. She's gorgeous, smart, and funny too. Honestly, she's the perfect kind of danger, way too easy to fall for. Then she brings up the ghost of the 7th tower, talking about an abandoned building in Taos. But then, that turns out to be a huge piece of information. With that, Flame has a chance to raise her affection with the main character. The reason Flame knows this is because Giselle mentioned it back in Chapter 9, and she was only supposed to tell the protagonist, so Baek backs off. Since this is such important info that even an NPC like him shouldn't know, he plays it safe and says ghost stories in Taos sound way too scary for him. That creates a pretty funny moment between them. More than that, it's enough to make her want to be honest with him, and he notices she seems a little nervous. So he tells her to choose Journey of Meditation in the Abyss as her liberal arts class. In short, he explains that meditation can raise her magic power. That immediately gets her attention. This isn't common knowledge, but for bishops who use destruction magic, meditation matters a lot. Their spells rely on exact formulas, equations, and precise control of mana. He says he's only telling her because she's just that cute, even though a few minutes ago he acted like she wasn't all that. Still, the tip helps and she gives him a small smile. Then she leaves. This time he does worry a little about changing the future. But if he stays away out of fear, Giselle could still die because of her tragic fate, so he hopes meditation really will help her. Then another thought hits him, maybe it could help him too. Even with his condition, he's still a mage. In the game, Baek Yuseol trained his body hard, awakened his physical strength first, delayed his magic reveal, and then grew insanely strong. Now he realizes he'll have to train for real, unlike before, when all he had to do was press a few buttons, so he starts his training. Back in his room, he sits on the bed and gets ready to meditate. He takes a deep breath, focusing as hard as he can. Stats aren't the main thing here. First, he has to get used to this body. Even if Baek was treated like a trash character in the game, he was still a genius who awakens sword aura. He uses the fact that mana keeps flowing in and out of the body non-stop. In the story, no one noticed him, no one knew, but Baek's character was actually a gifted master swordsman. This is his only path forward, so he keeps concentrating. His breathing starts guiding the flow of mana. Slowly, it grows stronger. With each breath, he absorbs a little more, and step by step, he begins opening the door to a new world. The meditation goes on for a long time. Before he even notices, morning has come, and he's still deep in meditation. At last, he succeeds. Like someone finally accepting his own condition, he opens the door to that new world. His status window updates, his syndrome levels up, his teleport skill levels up too. Happy with the result, he thinks he's getting closer to his goal, reaching the true ending of this game. After Baek succeeds in meditation and powers up his jump-around skills even more, we move to another place. With the wind brushing past her, Flame thinks about how everything around her was made artificially. This place is Stella's Dimensional Dome, a pocket dimension built on the Academy campus that can freely change its size. Sports events, dungeons, gates, and monster training all happen here. So this dome is where all the other students are gathered too, and of course Flame is one of them, along with the 114 new students. That makes her think, if this followed the novel exactly, there should only be 39 new S-class students, and she would be number 14. Naturally, that leaves her uneasy. Those thoughts make her wonder where Baek even came from. The guy is a walking chaos magnet. Still thinking about him, Flame decides he must have existed in the original novel too. She tells herself she'll have to sort all of this out little by little from now on. She's still worried, but this is her job. Flame is the only person in this world who knows the novel. In the end, she looks around and something catches her eye. Prince Jeremy Scarlvin, surrounded by NPCs. He's charming everyone like usual, handing out that perfect smile. Flame just watches. She remembers that in the novel, Jeremy Scarlvin was obsessed with Giselle. After getting rejected over and over, he eventually became a villain. Flame knows that even though Jeremy acts kind, everything he does is carefully planned, so she has to be careful around this future yandere. Prince, Jeremy Scarlvin notices her presence and gives a small laugh. Flame thinks the guy definitely has presence, but she still doesn't get why so many people suck up to him. Maybe it's the looks, the money, the status, the connections, probably all of it. In the end, Flame decides to leave his sight. She's sure she needs to be ready for the future. Meanwhile, Jeremy Scarlvin becomes slightly interested in her. After that, the staff announce that the new students will enter a simulated dungeon to test their skills. The simulation will include traps and monsters. Defeating a level 1 monster gives 4 points, a level 2 monster gives 8, and whoever grabs the stick in his hand gets 20 points. He adds that the top 5 freshmen will get small rewards, while anyone who ends with 0 points will lose points on their report. They can make teams, but the score gets split. After all the extra explaining, the professor leaves. Then suddenly thick roots burst out of the ground, changing the whole area into a giant forest. Flame quickly realizes it matches the Jack and the Beanstalk setting. With that, everyone starts the mission. Flame plans to go alone, but Jackie stops and asks if she's really doing the mission solo. Flame knows teaming up has benefits, but she wants more points, so she turns Jackie down. Jackie answers with a pretty sarcastic comment, then both of them head off. Before Flame can go far, something about Jackie catches her attention. Flame starts thinking Jackie might be copying her. Quick pause here, it really feels like Jackie is copying Flame to get attention, and that might be what pushes her into becoming a villain later. An hour after the event starts, Flame is already getting tired and wonders when the test will end. Suddenly plants attack her. She reacts fast and throws up a mana barrier blocking the attack. She realizes it's not just monsters she has to worry about out here. So far, Flame has earned 18 points, and that pushes her to keep going for more. In the thick brush, she senses someone nearby. She wonders if a monster is close, but to her surprise, it's Baek, and he's alone just like her. He turned down every team offer he got. What is this guy thinking? That's what runs through her head as she looks at him, especially after noticing he already has a stick worth 18 points. She decides this is her chance. Without hesitation, Flame casts a spell. They're about 15 meters apart. She aims true and fires a bullet of light straight at Baek. But Baek is still the king of hopping around, and he dodges it. Baek then thinks he almost died right there. Without his mana syndrome, he would have been in serious trouble. Now he starts planning carefully. His goal in this event is 5th place, just enough to win the electric roots. That reward boosts health and strength. He doesn't want to take huge risks, especially since the top 4 spots are basically locked already. While he's thinking, a group of students shows up, led by one of Jeremy Scarlvin's pawns. This guy here already has 3 sticks. He basically demands their points. Baek refuses. Our guy Baek is about to throw hands. He knows the fight will be rough without the 3 jumps from his skill, but he still has one trick left. It's the stick he's carrying. So Baek offers the stick to the other students. The group leader gets greedy the moment Baek offers up the stick, but his smile vanishes fast. Baek suddenly appears right in front of him and smashes through his magic barrier with one hit. Before the others can do anything, Baek is already on them, snatching their sticks with a smug little grin like he's having the time of his life. The students instantly start yelling at him to give them back, but all he says is, "Not my problem." Before the real fight starts, here's the short version of how he broke that barrier so easily. That wooden item is basically broken, super tough, and it hits like a magic tool. If Baek were a normal mage, using magic would be easier. But because mana messed him up, he has to fight with tools like this instead. Anyway, now that Baek has stolen the sticks, those guys try to strike back, but this is Baek we're talking about. So now it's time for the beatdown. Our guy goes in and tears through the whole group, proving exactly why he's Baek. He slips behind one of them and slams the stick into his face. The blow is so hard it sends the guy flying back. That sets off one hit after another, and the whole group starts dropping. In the end, it's basically Baek versus everyone, and Baek is the only one still standing. He beats them down with ease and claims every one of those sticks for himself. With the loot in hand, he mocks the poor NPC-like students and jumps away again. Behind him, the others are still shouting after getting completely wrecked by Baek, but someone else nearby has been watching the whole thing, and now she's interested. Baek is feeling pretty great after hitting the jackpot with all those sticks, when suddenly something strange catches his attention, and he wonders what that feeling is. Then he realizes an attack is rushing straight at him, out of nowhere. It crashes into the ground, and the impact triggers a huge explosion. Baek barely avoids it with his jump skill, then stares at the scorched area ahead, knowing he almost got cooked. Through the smoke, the caster finally reveals herself. She steps forward and locks onto Baek. It's a red-haired girl named Bega, and she asks why he didn't take every last stick. Confused, Baek asks why she even cares, and then it hits him. She wanted him to gather them all so she could steal them from him later. She even boasts about being royalty, and calls him out to fight. Just taking his stick wouldn't be enough for her pride. She wants to beat him first, then make it hers. With that, the fight between Baek and Baek begins, and she's already thinking today's the day she crushes him. She wastes no time and fires her magic at him. The attack comes fast, but Baek barely dodges. Still, this won't be easy. Baek's fire magic is no joke, and another attack is already on the way. Baek realizes that even if he dodges with his skill, the spell's range could still trap him in the crossfire. Then at that exact moment, a sudden sound grabs his attention. He instantly jumps toward it with his movement skill, and Baek's magic crashes into the spot where he had just been, burning through the area but missing him completely. He knows he got lucky that time, and while looking at Bea, he can tell this fight won't be simple. Next time, even if he gets close, the flames around her will ignite the moment he steps in. Bea knows that from fighting fire mages over and over back when he was still a player, and now Bea is clearly stronger than any fire user Baek expected to face. She doesn't hesitate and sends another wave of attacks at him. As the spells rush over, Baek admits to himself she's seriously strong, and without the space he's using to move around, he'd already be burned alive. Still, with the wooden sticks in his hands, Baek hardens his expression and decides he won't give them up that easily, and he definitely won't just stand there. Then Bea's attack hits and sets off another huge blast. Baek dodges again and keeps running through the battlefield. But one thing becomes clear to him in that moment. I can hear it. That's what he thinks as he watches the magic flying toward him. Everything feels slower, and by reading the direction and path of each spell, he uses the stolen stick to knock away all of Bia's attacks. To her, that makes no sense at all. How is he using that weapon to deflect magic? She just stares, wondering how this is even possible, while Baek keeps doing the impossible right in front of her. At the same time, his senses keep sharpening. Fighting a mage with his real body feels nothing like the old days when he was just a player behind a keyboard and mouse. Now it's vivid. He can feel the flow of mana itself, almost like he could grab it with his own hands. That strange sixth sense feels as natural as sight or hearing. Even after seeing all that, Bia stays frozen for a moment, still unable to believe what she's watching. And even though frustration starts building inside her, she doesn't back down. Instead, Bia decides she'll use an even stronger spell, one Bia won't be able to avoid. Baek also makes up his mind. He knows he can't stay on defense forever, so he'll have to use those magic sticks now and somehow break Bia's barrier. And then he moves. He circles around Bia while her body stays wrapped in protective flames like an armor of fire. She's locked down in the center, and Bia keeps moving around her fast. This is the moment he's been waiting for. Using his jump skill, he closes the gap little by little until he's only inches away. That alone catches her off guard, so she reacts as fast as she can and activates Light Crash. It's a close-range spell that explodes the instant it goes off. But Bia has dealt with this kind of magic many times before. He times his movement perfectly and slips out of the blast radius with just enough distance and momentum. Then he throws himself forward and brings the stick down hard on Bia's magic barrier. That single expert strike shatters it completely. The one with no magic, the one everyone looked down on, steps right up to her, lowers himself to her eye level, and makes it clear that he won, Baek himself. For a moment, Bia is left speechless. Then she asks who Bia really is, and his answer is simple, just a normal student. After that, Bia calls out someone else, who had been hiding nearby this whole time. It's Flame. She saw his strength for herself today, and now understands just how dangerous he is. At last, Flame walks over to him. A little uneasy, she tries to play it off, saying she wasn't hiding or anything, then asks how he knew she was there. Intuition, Baek says casually, even though it was really his sixth sense that picked her up. That answer only makes Flame more curious. So she asks how Baek managed to break Baek's magic barrier using nothing but a point stick, and that question surprises him too. Then she asks, almost teasing him, if he used that same intuition to pull it off. The truth is, it only worked because of a weird bug in the game, but that's not something Baek can easily explain to Flame, since she's a character from this world and doesn't know any of that. So he plays dumb and simply says the wood was really sturdy. That only makes Flame ask an even harder question. How did he know it could do something like that in the first place? Now she's putting him on the spot. She points out that if this were really possible, then this world would still be full of knights, not just mages. Finally, Flame looks straight at him, says his name, and seriously asks, who exactly is Baek? The mood gets so tense that even Baek starts feeling uneasy. Baek can only wonder if this is really how things are turning out. He hasn't even been here a full month, and all of this is already happening. He almost considers telling Flame the whole truth, that she's a character from his favorite game and that he knows she's someone from Earth too. Still, he only tells her that her suspicion is fair, but he's not a bad person. That just leaves Flame even more confused. He goes on to say that before anything else, he wants to help her. That only makes her more curious. But before she can ask more, he cuts the talk short and says that was nice, but he has to go. Before he leaves, Baek is still a little annoyed, so she hurls the stick at him without holding back, and honestly, it looks like she regrets it right away, or maybe not. When he asks what that was for, Baek says she thought he'd catch it easily. After all, during their fight, he dodged all her spells like he was Bruce Lee. It's not like he didn't want to dodge this one. His skill has limits. Yuseol's mana sense depends on his mental strength, and once he's mentally drained, all that's left is a pounding headache. Now, with his head already hurting inside and out thanks to the redhead, he asks why she threw the stick. Baek snaps back that since she lost, he should take her wood and leave. Pride, that's what he sees in her attitude. Even so, this is still a bit much, especially since he's only aiming for 5th place in the ranking. In the end, he walks over to Baek's pile of wood and takes just one piece. Then he tells her he'll only take one stick. She can keep the rest, because he's a knight. After that, he walks off like he totally nailed that cool exit, and yeah, he really is feeling himself. In his head, it's basically, wow, I'm amazing. Meanwhile, she just thinks he's an idiot, and yeah, too much swagger always causes trouble. Anyway, while all that was happening, somewhere else, the aides were gathered to watch the students' test matches. The usual school stuff. Then something catches the professor's eye, a clash between two S-class students. It's Matali against Yoping. Yop makes the first move, rushing straight at Matali. Matali answers by using his advanced jump skill to dodge the attacks. The professors start explaining what they're seeing, and the professor joins in too. Short version, Matali is seriously good. What really stands out is that every professor there is stunned. These students' skills and control are on another level. No wonder they stand out. Then, cutting through it all, a giant icy bird suddenly appears and interrupts the fight. It grabs both students' attention right away, because this huge bird is the hidden boss. But before anything can happen, the thing suddenly drops dead. So remember when I said these students were strong? I wasn't lying. But she, the one who steals the spotlight, is even stronger. It's none other than Giselle. She shows up asking if she interrupted, acting casual while making it very clear she was the one who did it. The professor sees her and immediately realizes she took down the hidden boss with ease. Cute face or not, she's the real deal. A few people there start talking about her too, but something else catches the eye of that mustached old man. It's the fight between the redhead and Baek Yuseol. He wonders who the unlucky student was that had to face Bia. Then something really grabs his attention. MC's mastery of movement as he dodges her attacks. That skill is also known as arrow praise. For centuries, scholars tried to control that ability and failed every time. It was thought to be impossible, so seeing a student use it draws the mustache man's full attention, and not just his. Everyone in that room is amazed by Yuseol's skill. They all start asking who he is. That's the answer they get. He's simply someone who specializes in that technique. That alone gets everyone interested. The mustached man asks why Yuseol seems to be playing around in battle, why he isn't using other kinds of magic, and why he doesn't seem to be fighting seriously. Then a young guy speaks up and says the protagonist actually has been serious from the very start. It's age, and he says MC's been locked in the whole time. He adds with a smile that he is very interesting. The way he fights reminds him of an old knight from long ago. The cavalry were knights who still use swords in a world ruled by magic. Since ancient times, heroes fought evil to protect the world, and many of them carried swords. But according to the professor, sword fighting is basically outdated now, which is why Yuseol using simple sticks like a blade is such a shock. On top of that, if the young man's guess is right, then the head of the greatest magic academy in the world, a 9th class mage and one of the 10 great mages, if even he sees Yuseol that way, then this could mean something big. The first event ends, and later in the S-class area, Yul is off training again. He's irritated by his lack of mana. Out of the 141 students who joined the event, Giselle took first place by defeating that hidden boss. Matali finished in 6th, but right now Yul can't stop thinking. If Giselle hadn't interrupted their match, then Matali probably would have. Before that frustration goes further, the focus shifts to the redhead, who shows up surprised by something. And that something is Yul. She wonders why he looks so angry. Anyway, she's here for the same reason, to take out her anger on the training dummy too. And yeah, saying she's upset is an understatement. As she starts going off, that flashy display catches Yul's attention. She's still mad because she only got 3rd place thanks to Yuseol's sticks. Even if her mother was somewhat satisfied, it still bothers her. So she blasts the training dummy again. Watching this, Yul starts wondering what happened. Still, unlike before, he notices her magic is more precise now. Looks like the protagonist's training is actually working, and honestly even she knows it. She just doesn't want to admit it. But the lessons she got from Yuseol really did help. He may be a low-status commoner with terrible grades and an awful personality, but Baya has to admit he's the only one who can fix her flaws. Yep, it's happening. Still, even with that, she's annoyed by everything. Then someone suddenly calls out to her. It's Bianca. She came to say the staff Bia ordered for Yuseol is finished, and asks if she should deliver it to him. Bianca says yes. As Bianca is about to leave, Bianca stops her and, working up some courage, says she'll bring it to MC herself. Later, somewhere else, Bianca carries Yuseol's new staff in her hands and goes looking for him, wondering what he's doing near the professor's room. Then she suddenly realizes, why did she even come here herself? She starts questioning her own choice. A little red-faced and shy, she hesitates and turns to leave. That's when someone else appears, a professor named Roniel. Well, maybe not exactly that name here, but that's who she is. Baya greets her and the professor greets her back. Then she says things are a bit hectic right now, which surprises Baya. All the professors are currently busy looking for Yuseol. Baya asks why, and the professor points out that in his fight he didn't use magic at all. Before she can even finish, Baya gets embarrassed. From her point of view, that match was humiliating, especially since it was seen by a professor she deeply admires. The professor notices how uncomfortable Bia is and then tells her why. The mage tells her not to blame herself. The other side had gone all out too, and even without explaining why Baek avoided other magic, she sums it up as pure determination. In her eyes, Baek is trying to bring back the age of the great knights from long ago. That idea leaves her curious, and she says it still doesn't make sense. But then she starts to understand. During that fight, Baek used his staff like it was a sword. So she realizes he was fighting like a magic swordsman, and maybe that's what he really wants to be. She points out that this is a magic school, and refusing to use magic will only get him punished. Still, the mage says this is the path Baek chose. Then she asks her straight up, doesn't that make him admirable? Even after mastering flash magic, Baek is still pushing himself even harder. Those words hit her hard. After saying that, the mage leaves, and she's left there alone. By the end of the day, she keeps thinking about him, wondering who could even become a knight in this era. But Baek has already made up his mind. He wants to become a knight with all his heart. Thinking about that only stirs her up more. Then all of a sudden, Baek shows up. He's chewing on something. It's the prize he got for placing 5th. He asks what she's doing there. She freezes up right away. She looks way too flustered to hide it. Trying to play it cool, she says she didn't come because of him. Baek calmly answers that he never even said she did. That only makes her more embarrassed. Still acting shy, she hands Baek his new staff, and he thanks her. But something quickly grabs his attention. In his hands, the sword is intangible. He's thrilled, and realizes asking for her help was the right call. Then he even asks if he can keep the box too. He wants to sell it. She says yes, while he happily celebrates, and she quietly makes fun of how broke this human is. Even so, she softly calls Baek by name. Then she asks if he really won't use any other kind of magic. That question clearly catches his attention, and for her, the mood suddenly feels a lot warmer. Later in another place, Baek heads off still thinking about what she asked. He's curious because another mage asked him the same thing before. Still, that one felt more like encouragement. Anyway, with this magic sword, the next few days should go smoothly, or so he thinks. Curious, he tests it out. He pours mana into it, and the sword starts growing bigger. No jokes. Seeing the blade expand, he gets excited and admits it's even better than he expected. He remembers this was supposed to go to Flame, which makes him think about who this weapon was truly meant for. Since Flame is a mage who can control elf, dwarf, and angel magic, she's someone special, because this staff drains its user's mana. Not just anyone can use it, but Flame can restore her mana from the natural energy around her, so she could handle it. But Flame is Flame. Baek is a different story. Because his magic power is always leaking out, he can't use it the normal way. In other words, the amount of mana he can gather through his breathing decides how strong this staff becomes. Then he opens his status window. Looking over his stats, he notices his mana leakage has reached level 2. That alone makes him happy, since the 5th place prize turned out to be really useful. Now that he has this weapon, gaining experience should be much easier. So he throws himself into training with his new sword, knowing he's going to stay very busy from here on out. After Baek spends hours and hours training, working to become a monster with the sword, a few days go by and the day finally comes for the new students to gather for a practical magic test. A mage tells everyone to ready their staffs. He's the academy's defense magic instructor. Just as ordered, the students begin practicing shield magic. Watching them, the instructor thinks this year's new class is full of talent, and he's glad to see it. But one person soon catches his eye. It's Baek standing there doing nothing, which makes the instructor wonder if this is the student the other teachers were talking about. A plain 5th rank wand user who somehow synced with a high mid-rank magic staff. The instructor finds Baek a little annoying already, so he asks why he's just standing there instead of training his defense magic. Baek answers through his actions and attitude that he's studying a different kind of defense technique, not the one being taught here. The instructor doesn't like that at all, but now he's curious about these so-called special defense methods. He recalls the rumors saying Baek uses no magic except teleportation, so he basically challenges him to prove it and show everyone what he can do. So he tells Baek he'll be sparring one-on-one with another student, then points him out. It's this red-haired guy the teacher calls forward, and he looks exactly like the type who thinks he's about to crush Baek, when really, he's the one about to get humbled. Now the duel begins. Baek, king of the sword, against the red-haired student. The redhead is full of confidence, while Baek stays as calm as ever. The crowd starts cheering for the red-haired student. Baek barely cares about any of it. For him, this is the perfect chance. Since this class is required, and he'd fail it if he couldn't use magic, this duel gives him a shot to earn points another way. Thinking it over, he quickly figures out what this setup is really about, and why this fight is happening in the first place. A sly grin spreads across his face. It's time to throw down and show the results of all that training. And with that, the match begins. The red-haired student wastes no time and makes the first move with full confidence. He attacks first. Baek shifts into stance, ready to strike. Right when the spell is about to hit him, he cuts clean through it. And it's a beautiful slash too. Like a magic-canceling blade, Baek uses the edge of his sword to erase the redhead's spell. The instructor is left speechless, unable to understand what just happened. Jeremy Scarlvin, though, seems like he might get it. Meanwhile, the red-haired student starts shaking, saying this is impossible. But Baek stands there totally unfazed, like cutting that spell was as easy as slicing fruit. Some of the girls watching start asking if it's even possible to cut magic with a sword. As the explanation comes together, the instructor realizes Baek didn't just slice the spell, he actually nullified it. In this world, all magic is built on flow, and if you can see that flow of mana, you can cut it. That's what makes Baek so shocking, and now the instructor is left wondering if he really has that ability. Meanwhile, Baek is thrilled. The sword turned out even better than he hoped, and with it, he can cut through 1 to 3-star magic. That's only possible because of all his training, and for now, that should be enough. That's what he tells himself as he gets ready to fight again, fully sure he'll win. Of course, the red-haired guy is furious now. The redhead is even madder now, because he knows he can't lose. This whole match was meant to crush Baek, so the instructor speaks up, and admits Baek's defense is impressive, but says it still has a weakness. In his eyes, Baek's technique isn't all that useful. He goes on to say that if a whole chain of attacks comes at once, there's no way Baek can block them all. It was basically a dirty hint, handed right to the redhead. The tip was so obvious that even Baek wondered if the guy had no shame at all. Before he could think much more about it, the redhead had already prepared a large spell with tons of attacks, making it painfully clear he got help from the instructor. He's full of confidence now. Sure, Baek is finished. Then he unleashes the barrage. All of it rushes straight at Baek. There are 11 stone projectiles flying at him. Baek quickly realizes he can't just cut through that many, and teleporting away won't work either. So he spins his sword as fast as he can, turning it into a shield. It's the only option he has. The moment he sees that, the redhead is stunned. That was his strongest attack, and Baek blocked it with ease. The instructor starts fuming, angry that the redhead still hasn't won. As for Baek, even he's surprised it worked. He says he just copied something he once saw in a game. A move like spinning your blade fast enough to make a wall. Pretty much just swinging it around like crazy. Still, because he's also using his wand, Baek knows he'll run out of energy soon. He has to end this duel fast. He also knows that kind of defense is pretty weak. In a real fight, it would cause him a lot of trouble. So he's just glad this is only a school duel and not a real battle. The other students start whispering that the redhead is about to lose, which makes him even angrier. Blinded by rage, he can't stand that a guy like Baek is making him look bad, so he starts gathering mana for another attack. That worries everyone watching, because this school duel is supposed to be turn-based. Each person attacks only on their turn, and the redhead is breaking that rule. Everyone is shocked by what he's doing. Everyone except that shameless instructor. Even so, the redhead gets ready to break the rule completely and shouts Baek's name. But right then, someone interrupts and calls out the instructor. It's Jeremy Scarlvin. He steps in with a faint little smile and directly asks why Baek still hasn't been given permission to attack. That puts the instructor in a very awkward spot and exposes his failure. With no way out, he finally gives Baek the order to attack. And that's all it takes. One quick move and the redhead is done. Since this is just practice class, that means Baek wins. The other students are shocked by his victory too, and now they're seriously impressed. Jeremy Scarlvin just keeps that small smile aimed at Baek. Sometime later, a girl stands there looking clearly uneasy. Around her, people are shouting, begging for forgiveness. That same redhead is lying there in a pool of blood, and the one who beat him down is Jeremy Scarlvin. In the end, Jeremy turns to the girl, calling her Vera, to get her attention and calmly says her friend looks badly hurt, so she should take care of him. Then he leaves, making Vera stay behind to deal with the mess. She's left deeply uncomfortable by the way he said it. In this empire, magical skill decides everything, and Jeremy Scarlvin became crown prince at just 12 by surpassing all his brothers. So when he called the redhead a friend instead of a servant, it meant the redhead's family had been thrown out of imperial politics for good. That leaves Vera thinking hard, because now Jeremy Scarlvin has noticed someone else too. Baek, whose school life is about to get much harder. But that's a story for another time. For now, we move to the next day, and now it's time for an alchemy class. Baek is still the talk of the school, because now everyone knows he wants to become a knight. That annoys her a lot. No matter where she goes, all she hears about is Baek, and for some reason, it really gets under her skin. Yeah, that kind of tension feels like the start of a romance. Soon, the alchemy teacher gets everyone's attention and addresses the class. She explains that alchemy needs exact measurements, perfect timing, and strict heat control. This is Professor Meiter, the alchemy instructor. Today, the class will be making a fatigue recovery potion that she developed herself. Then we cut back to Flame, who clearly isn't happy. This is not her best subject. Watching the lesson, she thinks again that alchemy is a hard class she wanted to avoid. And for good reason, the professor never hesitates to shame students who are bad at it. From what Flame knows, this professor will become a necromancer in the future and bring chaos. That's why Flame has to keep coming to this class, whether she wants to or not. Then someone else grabs attention with loud laughter. And of course, that someone is Baek, acting like some mad scientist. At first, Flame thought Baek only came to this class to chase girls, Gisela especially. But seeing him now, she realizes he's actually having fun. Anyway, this is what she's thinking, and what happens next. After finishing her alchemy work, Flame feels relieved. She's just glad she got her potion done quickly. With her own potion complete, she looks for Gisela and wonders what she's doing. Soon she spots her, hard at work. At first, Flame is glad to see things seem to be going well, but then she notices something is wrong. In the original story, Gisela finds Mila's notebook on magical machinery. Using that notebook, she creates an improved version of the fatigue recovery potion from this class. So why did she make an ordinary one instead? That immediately makes Flame curious. Then she hears more people talking about Baek, wondering why he changed the ingredients in his potion. Cutting to him, Baek tells the professor his version is simply better, which leads to a small argument between student and teacher. That's when Flame finally understands what's happening. The higher-level potion Gisela was supposed to make was actually made by Baek instead. And honestly, this part is worth pointing out. It's funny, in other stories, a smart side character avoids the main plot but still gets dragged in by other people. He gets involved anyway, just not by his own choice. Baek is the opposite. He throws himself right into the mess. Here he took the booklet that should have gone to Gisela and caused all of this himself. Back to Flame. She's still confused because this really is strange. She keeps asking herself why Baek made the potion instead of Gisela. Meanwhile, the professor starts criticizing Baek's behavior and attitude, even taking a nasty shot at him for being a commoner. That catches Flame's attention right away. Those same words should have been aimed at Gisela, in her case not commoner but girl from a ruined family. According to the novel, that line hurt Gisela deeply because she really did lose her family, and that wound stayed with her all the way to the end of the original story. So Flame starts wondering if Baek knew that and chose to take the blame himself, so Gisela wouldn't have to hear it and suffer that trauma. As for the answer to Flame's question, no, probably not. If it weren't for Baek's glasses, he'd be just as clueless as ever. In the end, Flame thinks about the professor again. She has a lot of influence at Stella, and once she marks someone as a problem, even their grades in other classes can suffer. That makes Flame wonder why Baek is going this far for Gisela. Back to the professor. Now she's seriously angry with Baek and demands that they call his parents. Baek can only answer that he doesn't even have parents. He's an orphan. And yeah, he really is slow, because only now does he remember the ending of this situation. This whole mess. He stops caring about holding back. The teacher is left awkward after hearing he's an orphan, and that's exactly what he's counting on. From this point on, he just says it straight. Then a few weeks passed, and the arguments between Baek and that teacher kept going. In the end, through his glasses, he checks the teacher's information, her name, corruption level, and other details too. She shakes with rage while he thinks everything is going as planned. In episode 8, the nasty teacher's episode, she fails to control her dark feelings and becomes one of the game's villains. Once her dark corruption passes 90, she'll turn into that monster. Right now, her corruption is at 21. He still has no proof that she's using dark magic, so he can't report her. His only move for now is to keep pushing her until it goes past 50. With normal corruption, you can still stop it before the full change happens. But this teacher made the contract by choice, so the seed of dark magic is already growing inside her. Now it can't be undone. Episode 4 hasn't even started yet, but since this teacher is a strong boss, Baek knows he needs to get ready. Meanwhile, the nasty teacher keeps tearing into Baek for how he's been acting. She tells him not to expect good grades in her class. Still, he sees one good side to that. Less trouble for him later. But then he notices who's beside him, his smart little study partner. Judging by everyone's faces and especially hers, the mood is still pretty bad, so he tries to break the ice by introducing himself to the group. First the blonde girl's name, then the brunettes, and of course the nerdy girl everyone already knows. Baek starts whining that they're doomed because the teacher is going to give all of them bad grades. But then the girl cuts in and asks if they're really going to give up just because of that. And here comes the important part. She says they still have a way to fight back by doing as well as possible. The best score they can get still matters. Yuseol explains that during the practical exam, at least 3 alchemists will come judge their work, so the teacher alone can't ruin their grades just because she's fighting with Baek. That gives the whole group a small bit of hope, and Gisela brightens the room. Even Baek ends up smiling at her a little, and the way she steps up here is honestly really sweet. Then Gisela moves on to the plan. To make the vitality potion, they just need to use everything they've learned so far. They only need the right ingredients now. Baek immediately gets ready to go collect them, especially the fireman lizard tail. Watching him, Giselle gets a little curious. He really does seem confident, and Baek is already fired up, thinking he'll go straight to the source and grab the lizard tail himself. After some time passes that night, a certain student visits the nasty teacher. She tells the student to hand out the note she's holding to every alchemy group. Every group except group 12, Baek's group. She passes the paper over with a satisfied smile. The Academy's alchemy practical will be judged in front of professional alchemists, and one serious mistake could destroy a student's future. That's exactly what the teacher wants. Swap the ingredients and make it look like Baek's group made a terrible mistake with the potion. The next day comes, and at the training field, Flame is there again when someone calls out to her. It's that same student from before, handing her the note with the new ingredients. Before leaving, he tells Flame to keep it secret and not tell any other student. According to him, she'll understand why, and she does. She immediately thinks of Baek, lets out a small sigh, and wonders why they think she'd really stay quiet after seeing this. So the potion recipe really was changed. But then something crosses Flame's mind. If Baek truly knows something about the original story, then he should be able to stop an incident like this. In that case, he should bring Atrix spider shells, the new ingredient needed for the changed potion. She lightly crumples the paper, thinking this is the perfect chance to test him. She wants to know if he really understands more about this world than he should. Then we cut to Baek after he uses the Academy's teleport hall. The trip leaves him a little dizzy. A voice calls out to him, and a kind receptionist welcomes Baek to the city of Derby with a warm smile. He says he's not a real student yet, just an Academy cadet. But she answers that even a cadet deserves to be treated like an official Academy mage. And honestly, wearing Stella Academy's uniform is a big deal. It draws attention from everyone standing around the platform. Some chatter, some jealousy. Before he leaves, the receptionist tells Baek to come find her if he needs anything, and he thanks her politely. He's thrilled. Being treated like an official mage anywhere is amazing, and the teleport hall usually costs a diadem, while he gets to use it for free. Because of that, Baek spent whole weekends using it to visit big cities. Soon after looking around, he realizes he's found the place he was searching for. His target is the fire-manned lizard, a level 2 danger beast. It's stronger and tougher than normal animals, has magic resistance, and moves fast, so you need at least a class 2 spell to catch it. Back when he was a player, Baek handled this thing without much trouble, so he's sure he can deal with it again. Then he senses something nearby moving at high speed. He goes on alert, pulls out his sword, and knows it's time. The creature rushes at Baek from behind. His instincts kick in right away. With a single strike, he hits the charging lizard cleanly, and it drops to the ground. One down, he tells himself. Then more lizards appear coming out of the forest. Baek sees the group and decides it's time to move. He charges in anyway, yelling that he'll collect his ingredients by force if he has to. Sometime later, Yuseol is shocked by what she sees. Baek actually brought back fresh ingredients for the group. A little embarrassed, she thanks him and tells everyone they should get moving. Baek agrees, happy that things are finally going well. Yuseol says all they need to do now is make the potion. She gets everyone moving, and the group's mood becomes way lighter than it was at the start. Then the nasty teacher arrives with the visiting alchemists. She tells the class that today's lesson is a practical exam, watched by professional alchemists, and that doing well could really help their future. She says it all with a sly smile while explaining today's task, something Baek's group had no idea about. That makes Yuseol question the teacher about the ingredients for the potion. The teacher answers that she changed the potion ahead of time and already informed everyone earlier. Then she asks the other students if they already knew, making the whole room turn ugly. Baek realizes that's how this teacher plans to play it. If it only hurt him, that'd be one thing, but dragging his whole group down is different. A bad grade would hit all of them. He starts wondering if this was part of the original story too, and then he notices Flame glancing at him. She quickly looks away, which only makes him more curious. That makes Flame even more confused. If he knows the original story, why didn't he stop this from happening? Back with the group, the professor turns to Yuseol and asks if she was the one who brought those ingredients. She reminds her that alchemists are supposed to search for the truth, then scolds her for mixing up something this basic. Just as she's about to declare that their group will fail the test, Baek cuts in, catching her off guard by asking if all they need to do is make the potion. He boosts Yuseol's confidence and says he'll make it work, even with the wrong ingredients. The professor goes still when Baek says he'll finish the potion with these substitutes, and do it better than she expects. He says it with full confidence, like he's about to prove everyone wrong right here. Even with Baek fired up, one of the alchemists stays doubtful, and the professor starts thinking it through. The original formula for this restorative potion uses the shell of an Atarex spider as its main ingredient. So in her mind, there's no way Baek can copy that result with a tail ingredient instead. Still, she tells him to go ahead, sure he won't pull it off. Then she gives the group 1 hour to finish the potion. On Baek's side, his teammates still think this is impossible and nearly give up on the spot. But with a calm smile, he tells them they just need to do their part and trust him. Even if their first reaction looks like a no, it turns into a clear yes. They start believing he might really pull off a miracle. Baek's confidence spreads fast and the group finally gets moving. But before that, here's a quick bit of context about alchemy in this world. Back when he was a player, alchemy was the system Baek liked most. He was basically a recipe nerd from the easiest mixes to the hardest ones. Among all those recipes, there was one potion formula he still remembered, the one tied to this test. So he moves ahead even though this recipe was only supposed to show up later, as something Professor Manhwa would claim as her own invention. Baek gives the team a quick explanation. They can use the blood from the tail to make the same potion. He even goes into the technical side a little, mentioning a tribe whose lifespan increased from using that tail blood. So one teammate takes charge of processing that ingredient. Another jumps in too, not wanting to just stand around, and says she'll handle her part. From there, the group gets to work. Seeing it all come together, Baek gives a small, satisfied smile. Manhwa, on the other hand, doesn't look happy at all, because now there's a finished potion right in front of her. Baek presents it plainly. It's Talon Type B. The other alchemists step in to inspect Baek's potion. They check it over in stunned silence. And yes, it really is the completed Talon potion. The whole group lights up with happiness. Manhwa quickly snatches the potion from Baek's hands, saying she'll examine it herself. And she ends up proving him right. Baek shuts her down again, leaving her completely shaken. She's clearly rattled by the whole thing. Then, just when it seems like she might still try to give his group a low score, the grade is A. The alchemists announce it out loud, stunning Manhwa. An A for Baek's group. Nothing but smiles. Yeah, it's a little much, but those happy faces deserve the spotlight. While everyone else is celebrating, one person is definitely not happy about this. Her hatred only gets more real now, and it's all aimed at Baek's group. Of course, her corruption progress keeps rising little by little. Baek, with his glasses on, completely turned the tables on Professor Manhwa. She came in planning to humiliate him, and ended up embarrassing herself instead. After that, some time passes. Now at the training field, Flame grumbles that going back to studying like this is rough. A group of girls notices her and tries to cheer up the red-haired girl nearby. Flame recognizes her right away. The reason for her frustration is simple. Baek has been doing better than her in training. That makes Flame think about Baek's sudden improvement, and she starts wondering if Baek had something to do with it. It feels strange, especially from the very start. As far as Flame knows, the Tearing Bee potion Baek made was actually something Yuseol was supposed to create in the near future, until Manhwa stole it and took all the credit. That leads Flame to wonder how Baek could know how to make a potion that never even appeared in the novel. So she starts narrowing it down. Maybe Baek doesn't just know the novel. Maybe he knows the future itself. And honestly, Flame puts the pieces together fast here. Maybe she's smart, or maybe Baek just made it easier to figure out. The one part she gets wrong is this. She assumes Baek isn't from Earth like she is, but someone who went back in time. That idea makes her even more curious, because to her, it fits. Someone from the future might forget the smaller details. In the novel, Baek actually does get one chance to return to the past through a certain being, the only one with power over time. But before she can finish that thought, someone calls out to her. Flame hurries over to Ian and asks if he knows anything about Baek. He doesn't know a thing, and that answer clearly annoys her. Then, Ian asks if Flame is worried about Baek. She admits that in a way, yes she is. Without meaning to, she's just set something else in motion. Even after that, Flame keeps thinking about whether Baek is really a time traveler or not. Ian picks up on it and says he'll just ask Baek himself, which of course is where a bunch of misunderstandings start. In the end, Flame says goodbye to Ian and leaves. Ian stays behind, looking pretty down after getting unintentionally outdone by Baek again. The next day, Baek is taking it easy and having breakfast like nothing happened. He lets out a small sigh while thinking about what to do next. Right now, Professor Majera's corruption level is at 31. That means in about 3 months, something bad is likely to happen. The possible targets are Jackie, Flame's so-called friend, Beyond Laria's fierce fire magic rival, and Ian, the heir to the Tui family. Out of all of them, Ian would be the worst case. If dark corruption reaches him, things could go very badly. That's what Baek thinks as he stands up. In the game, that route was rare, but if Ian gets corrupted, it leads to one of the worst endings. So Baek knows he has to be extra careful to stop it, as he thinks that over the most likely one of the three seems to be. But before he can finish the thought, Flame suddenly appears. She looks upset with a clear frown on her face. Then she asks Baek who he really is, and what he actually wants, pointing out that last time he never gave her a real answer. And yeah, getting cornered by Flame is not fun. Still, seeing how genuinely worried she looks, Baek thinks telling her the truth might be the best move. If they share what they know, maybe they can find the real ending to this game. So he starts to explain that he's a person from Earth living inside the body of this game character, when suddenly a bunch of system screens pop up, all warning him that the narrative is incomplete and that he must not reveal his true identity. It's basically the author's easy excuse to keep the romance tension between these two going. The repeated system windows catch him off guard and even give him a headache, so he tells Flame they all have secrets and he'll only tell her half the truth. Flame accepts that and tells him to go on. So their question game begins, and Flame starts strong by asking if Baek knows the future. Baek immediately realizes she went straight for the biggest question, so he answers carefully. If she's asking that, then maybe she knows the future too. And with that, he turns it back on her and asks what her goal is. Flame answers that she doesn't want the world to end because it's in danger. Now that they understand each other, Flame asks her next question. She bluntly asks why he acts the way he does. That was her real question, not about something else, but why he behaves like this. Betas isn't sure how to answer, so he decides to keep it vague. He tells Flame that he acts this way because this is the best way he knows how to act here. Even while saying it, he wonders if that answer is enough. Then Flame suddenly snaps. Shaking, she yells for Betas not to lie to her, and asks how someone could be this kind. She's upset because she can't believe he'd do all this with no hidden reason, so she demands to know what he really wants. But unlike Flame, Betas doesn't have some big clear goal. So far, he just wants to see this game's true ending. His favorite game, so he honestly doesn't know how to answer her. In the end, he gives Flame an answer she never expected. He says he only wants to live. That's his goal. Nothing more. After hearing that, Flame apologizes for being rude, which of course leaves Betas confused. Then she simply walks away, crying. Betas is left there in total panic, wondering what just happened. As Flame leaves, Ian shows up. He immediately gets Betas' attention. Ian asks what he did to Flame and why she ran off in tears. At that moment, Betas realizes he's in trouble, especially since Ian is completely into Flame. So he quickly puts on a calm smile and says it's not what Ian thinks, just a misunderstanding, and tells him not to worry. And surprisingly, Ian actually calms down. He even apologizes to Betas too. After that, he leaves. Betas watches him go, thinking the whole thing was weird. Ian is usually cold and careful, so seeing him act that emotional is rare. Anyway, night falls, and in her room, this girl is having trouble focusing on her studies. She keeps thinking back to when she went to ask Betas something herself. She had asked about the potion, and whether he was the one who came up with that mix. His vague answer only surprised her more. For a long time, she believed she was a genius. She truly thought that if she kept going like this, one day she could beat her. I always believed that, but those words don't comfort her anymore. Now she thinks that if things stay this way, she'll never be able to avenge her father. Her father, Gazela's father, was branded a traitor and killed for it. The ones behind it were the filthy Libeta family, and she burns with rage, swearing to get revenge on all of them. Still, now isn't the time, so she forces herself to stay calm. She tells herself she'll work harder than ever from now on, then goes back to studying as the night deepens. With that, we move to Flame, who also can't sleep. There's only one thing on her mind, Betas, of course. She remembers him saying he has no real goal, and to her, that proves he really is a time traveler. In the original novel, Mateus was told he could turn back time, but in exchange most of his memories would be lost, and once his mission was done, he would disappear. No one would remember that he saved the world, not even the people he loved. Even so, he was asked if he still wanted to go back in time. With a sad smile, Maedrit said yes. If that was his fate, then yes. But in the middle of that moment, Yuseol stopped him. She told him that if the choice was living in a world where Maedrits didn't exist, then she would rather see everything destroyed as long as she could still remember him. Because of those words, Maedrits gave up on turning back time and stayed by Yuseol's side. Their love led to the world's destruction, and that was how the novel ended. Tragic endings always split people, so maybe the author is hinting that this story could end the same way. Back to Flame, that was everything she knew about this world so far. But now Betas' interference, something that never happened in the novel, makes her wonder if this world is different from the original, and if the one who came back through time was Betas, not Mateus. She starts thinking that Betas might vanish the moment his mission is complete, with his whole existence erased from this world. That thought alone leaves Flame deeply worried. Quick pause here, in the original novel, the world was destroyed because of Yuseol and Mateus's love, but when Flame entered this world, her actions changed the original story. That twisted version became the game Betas used to play. Now think about Betas' game ending. Even after beating the final boss, he still couldn't reach the true ending. That's why he was sent into this world. So maybe Betas is here as a sacrifice. He's still a player, yes, and his mission is to clear the game and return home. But the price may be that he stops existing in this world, and maybe that's why he can't tell Flame everything he knows. It sounds a little wild, but it actually makes sense. Flame ends up deciding that Betas really is a time traveler. She thinks he lost his memories, which is why he lost his sense of duty, and that would explain why he said he just wants to live. That idea fills her with a heavy sense of worry, but that can wait for later. Now Jake enters Flame's room and tells her Ian is looking for her. She says he's waiting on the first floor, but Flame couldn't care less. That answer leaves Jake a little stunned. Then she realizes Flame really doesn't care about Ian at all, unlike her. Meanwhile, Ian is downstairs, fully expecting Flame to come meet him, but the one who shows up is Jake. She came hoping to talk to her crush. Honestly, it's kind of sad. Ian just looks at her and asks, "What is this?" Then in a flat voice, he asks about Flame and Jake tells him she's already asleep. Hearing that, he simply leaves. Jake is left behind alone. Sadly, she tells herself that no matter how much she liked him, Ian doesn't even remember her name. It's always been like this. Extraordinary talent and everyone's attention. Flame always had it all, even Ian's heart. Now Jake sees that clearly, and with that realization, a certain feeling takes over her whole body. That feeling is anger. The next day at the Academy's main tower, someone is speaking with Professor Amajera. Word reached him that she embarrassed herself in front of a student. He reminds her that people expect a lot from her. This man is the vice director of the Academy. He asks about the random flow intersection formula she's been developing with the church, and she answers that everything is going well so far. She promises she won't disappoint him. Then he steps closer, lightly places a hand on her shoulder and says he's counting on her. After Professor Amajera leaves the room, the vice director calls her an idiot, his face turning serious. He thinks she's blinded by her fame and doesn't even realize she's being used. A magical warrior who should be fighting demonic humans is instead doing research for their sake. He lets out a quiet laugh at the thought, then admits he's looking forward to the day black tech magic is finally complete. With that, we move somewhere else. This kind girl is completely overloaded with work. Then, to her surprise, someone comes to help her. That someone is Betas. Once they arrive where they were headed, she thanks him for the help. Betas looks around and thinks the room is a total mess. Then a formula written on the board catches his eye. The girl explains that Professor Amajera created it herself. To Betas' surprise, it's the random flow intersection formula. So here's the context. This is the first black tech magic formula. The random flow intersection formula. In the Professor Amajera corruption episode, the demonic humans finish this formula together with her. The technology gap that creates causes massive damage, but the whole situation changes because of this girl Altarisha who steps in. But seeing all this, Baek gets an idea. What if Alicia cracks the formula before the demonic humans do? So he gets Alicia's attention. Then he asks if Fasura Megara doesn't make her mad every time she pushes her around. The question catches Alicia off guard. Right after that, he drops something huge. What would she do if she had a really satisfying way to get back at her? Alicia doesn't know how to respond at first. Baek stands there with a confident smile and she can tell he's completely serious. A little nervous, she says she's only an assistant. Getting revenge would just put her job at risk. But Baek cuts in and tells her she'll become an alchemist 10 times better than Fasura Megara. He keeps going, saying no one will look down on her anymore, and that she needs to believe in her own talent. Like he said, this all starts with one big what if. Still a little shy, Alicia gives a small smile and admits that would actually be amazing. Baek knows she's already worn out. There's no way she'd be happy spending her whole life stuck in this dusty storage room. Alicia always dreamed of becoming a great alchemist, making and inventing whatever she wanted, and she really does have the talent for it. In fact, she will become the greatest genius alchemist of this era, creating all kinds of items with her sharp mind and original ideas, nothing like a certain Fasura Megara. That's what Baek is trying to do now. give this genius alchemist the confidence she's been missing. She pushed that dream aside because life was hard and it wore her down, but soon that dream will become real, and I'll help make it happen. I like Alicia. After that, until the end of the first exam, Baek keeps visiting Alicia, and unlike before, Alicia now always has a bright smile on her face. The two of them spend hours talking about alchemy. Seeing that makes Baek feel satisfied, especially since his inventions are improving without any big problems. Still, the formula problem isn't solved yet. Baek keeps thinking about how to get Alicia to find the answer before Fasura Amaja does, and that won't be easy. While he's lost in thought, someone calls out to Baek. It's Flame. She tells him that if he keeps walking around half asleep like that, he's going to run into someone. Baek asks why she called him over, and the two fall into a light conversation. Even with her usual little jabs, Flame talks to him way more than she used to. Changing the subject, Baek says it's good he ran into her and asks about her friend Jack. That question makes her look at him a little funny. Still, he keeps it simple. Baek just asks Flame to take good care of her friend. He warns that Jack might not be doing so well. Maybe the sober erosion is already affecting her, and she may not be stable anymore. Flame says she doesn't really know for sure about Jack, but the two of them are going hunting together this weekend, and yes, she'll watch over her. And that hunting season matters because that's when episode 4 begins. It all happens at the Martavis Cemetery. This is the place where all the main characters gather. A major battle breaks out there, and a 5th-level necromancer appears too. But that's the main cast's story, at least in Baek's mind. He doesn't plan to get too involved, we'll see. After that, Baek goes with Professor to get permission to leave. It's a leave pass for Trinos. Professor says that's fine, after all, you can't keep swordsmen or cavalry locked up forever. Then something else catches Baek's eye. There's another leave request just like theirs, but this one belongs to Matale. That immediately makes him curious. Baek comments that a lot of new students have been going out to hunt lately. Professor answers that they're all heading to Martavis Cemetery for a club activity. Then Baek brings up Matale and Yan, saying both of them work really hard despite their grades, but Professor cuts in and says that's not it. Matale isn't going there. He's going home. He also explains that Yan is going with Flame, but Matale isn't. That shocks Baek because only with Matale there can Flame's group survive the Necromancer's attack. Now Baek is even more confused. Why would Matale go home when that never happened in the original events? With the group as it is now, Flame's team won't be able to beat a 5th-level Necromancer, and that's a real problem. What am I supposed to do? He can't ask for reinforcements without proof the attack is coming. And because of that strange narrative force that stopped him from telling Flame he's a possessor like her, he also can't properly explain future events. But I won't let them die. So even if he doesn't want to, Baek decides he'll have to handle this himself. A few days pass, and soon they're at the cemetery. Over here, one guy has just taken down a monster. It's Dok, a second-year student, with Derek by his side, also a second year. While they go back and forth for a bit, we meet 2 more second years, Diana and Giselo. Diana acts like a proper senior, telling the nervous girl not to pay too much attention to those 2 idiots. The shy girl thinks she joined them because she heard this group had an open spot that came with special permission to go out. At least they don't seem like bad people. Then suddenly a loud noise rings out, startling the studious girl. Everyone turns curious about what caused it, so they head over to check for themselves. When they arrive, they find something pretty strange. A full-on fight is about to break out. It's Flame versus Bion. Place your bets. Jokes aside, they're arguing for spoiler-related reasons, but right now, both are claiming they were the one who defeated the predator fish. Seeing all that, Yuseol quickly decides to stay out of it. No way is she getting dragged into this mess. It doesn't help that Baek is the sister of the guy who took her daughter from her own father, so Giselle really wants no part of any of this. At this point, she just wants to leave as fast as possible. But before that can happen, Derek tries to step into the argument, and both girls immediately tell him to shut up and get lost. Absolute divas. And yeah, this fight doesn't look close to ending, but a sudden noise distracts them. A horde of undead starts crawling out of the ground right then and there. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Baek is picking up one reward after another. He's already taken down several predator fish all by himself. As he moves through the area searching for something specific, he finally finds what he was looking for, this gravestone. Baek doesn't have some broken skill like Matale to wipe out an army of skeletons in one shot, and he doesn't have overwhelming power either. So if he wants to survive, there's only one way. Fight smart, like a gamer. In other words, this is where the Necromancer's attack begins. And Baek is already standing at the spot, the place where the skeleton general appears, the one who commands hundreds of skeletons. It's a sub-boss monster that only shows up 3 times in this episode. If Baek fights it normally at his current level, he's done for. That is if he were thinking normally. Baek pulls off a move with a clear reference. I doubt you'll guess what it's from. In most stories, the normal thing here would be to stand back and watch the monster crawl out of the ground. But like I said, Baek is anything but normal. The monster is beaten almost as soon as it appears. That lets Baek get the spine of the Sky Staff, and with it the skeletons will obey him. So with that settled, it's time for him to move. Back with the girls. In the middle of the attack, things are going badly. Flame knows the situation, but something is clearly off, and that missing piece is Matale, who isn't here. She can't help wondering why she's the one in this place instead of Matale. That leaves her seriously worried they may have to face the necromancer alone with this current group. Then Yan says he already sent a distress signal to the academy with his pocket watch, and tells Flame they just need to hold on until help arrives. Doke and Diana back him up, telling everyone to stay strong because reinforcements will be here soon. They urge the group on, even if they can't beat the necromancer, they all need to make it out alive. Beyond gives the softest little sarcastic remark, asking if they really think this will be easy. She reminds them this is a graveyard. The longer they stay, the more skeletons will keep coming. Like it or not, that's the situation. So her answer is simple: fall back and return to base. Meanwhile, Jackie is starting to get overwhelmed. When a skeleton charges straight at her, a sudden attack cuts in and saves her. It's Neely, checking if she's okay. Then Gazelle says the necromancer came ready for this fight. She warns the group there's a good chance he made a mana vessel. That's a method where a necromancer keeps pouring mana into storage over time. Even a necromancer has limits, so if he summoned skeletons normally at this level, he'd struggle to call more than a dozen. That's what Giselle figures, and seeing this many skeletons in front of them, the answer feels obvious. As the skeletons start gathering around them, Senpai realizes this had to be planned from the start. Whoever set this up may want to kill them all and turn them into magic skeletons. With the pressure of being vice leader on him, Derek thinks he has to do something. He decides to use his strongest magic and wipe out every skeleton at once. But then, right in the middle of casting, something goes wrong, catching Flame and Gazelle completely off guard. Bjorn shouts that if it blows up, everyone will get hit. And then the whole group is knocked out by the attack. Only Flame is still standing. Even so, she's already at her limit after everything that happened. Things look terrible. Her mana is almost gone, and she has no time to recover it. On top of that, all those enemies are still right in front of her. She starts losing hope, thinking this might be where she at that moment. All the skeletons rush toward her, and just before they can strike, suddenly every one of them stops. Flame is stunned, wondering why, and the reason soon becomes clear. Among the skeletons, they can see someone familiar. It's none other than Baek, showing up like a hero at the last second to save everyone. Flame can't believe he made it here. Then she notices the staff in his hand, and that shocks her even more. The skeleton general is far stronger than a normal skeleton. It should have been guarded by elite skeletons, so she can't figure out how Baek managed to capture something like that alone. She can hardly believe it, but thanks to him, she's still alive. After the immediate danger passes and everyone recovers a little, Doke Chogwang Senpai thanks him. Giselle, still curious, asks Baek how he got the head of a skeleton general. He brushes it off with a dumb little joke instead. Really, he just knows he can't explain how he did it, which only leaves her even more confused. Changing the subject, he says they need a plan fast. If the necromancer stops relying on the skeleton general and starts controlling the others himself, they're done for. Doke asks if he has any idea. Baek says the necromancer already controls the area around their base, so escaping now is impossible. That leaves only one way through this. They have to take down the main body once and for all. And of course that won't be easy. Still, Baek says necromancers may be dangerous because of their skills, but their real bodies are weak. If they want to get out alive, this is their only shot. Right now, the necromancer's guard force is 1 skeleton general, 6 elite skeletons, and 50 regular ones. Beidou knows that number will only keep growing with time, so their chance is now if he can convince them. But all of a sudden, 2 voices speak up at once. They tell him it can be done. It's Flame and Baejin. Things looked hopeless not long ago, but now both of them agree with Baejin. Because of that, Senpai tells him with real confidence that if they fight beside Baejin, they can beat the necromancer. And now we meet the necromancer himself. Saoba Haibi Hyuk. Haibi tells himself that if he turns these academy students into skeletons, the Black Alliance will never look down on him again. He's been storing mana for a full year and has 700 sleeping skeletons ready. After this, no one will dare mock him again, or so he thinks, grinning to himself. Then suddenly he feels a break in his control. His general has been captured. Before he can react, a surprise attack flies right at him. He manages to block it, but even his wall of skeletons starts breaking apart. That shocks him. His 4th level magic is actually cracking. Furious, he yells that he won't let the bastard who attacked him get away. Then a second strike comes at him. A huge fire attack slams into him head-on, and it comes from none other than Byeon. It still isn't enough to finish him, but now he's in serious trouble. He never expected attacks to reach him here. Seeing 4 students from Estella, he realizes they really are academy students after all. Still, he refuses to fall behind. At his command, the skeleton army answers. A massive wave of skeletons rises from the ground right away, but forcing that summon hurts him too, causing internal damage. Even so, he decides it's enough, so he sends the horde straight at them. While the others are busy fighting, the necromancer starts to relax, but then someone appears in his blind spot. It's the one person he never saw coming, and now that same guy is proving he can still get things done with his so-called trash skill. Baeth's sudden appearance grabs the necromancer's full attention. He shouts, demanding to know who Baeth is and where he came from, while Baeth just stands there with a small smile on his face. The necromancer had been tracking every student through the skeleton's eyes, so he can't understand how Baeth got here. Then he notices something else. Baeth has the MVP move. He demands to know why Baek has the skeleton general under his control. And the moment he finishes, Baek slams that skeleton into the ground and shatters it. The sight makes the necromancer cough up blood. He's truly shocked. He underestimated Baek and now he's staring right at the one who ruined everything. As for Baek, he's just wondering what this mess even is, because none of this was supposed to happen. Dake and the others were supposed to handle the skeleton general and come help him after. But with this many skeletons, they can barely move. So now he wonders if he really has to fight the necromancer solo. He lets out a small sigh and tells himself there's only one way out of this. Then something catches his eye. The necromancer may look fine, but Baek realizes he's not actually in great shape either. After forcing that giant summon, he must have hurt himself too. In other words, this is the moment Baek realizes. Back with the girls, we focus on Baek who knows this is bad. They need to wipe out these skeletons fast and go help Baek. Then someone else gets her attention. The red-haired girl says they have a huge problem. She tells Baek, to her shock, that Baek is fighting the necromancer alone. Right then, a huge burst of mana erupts in the area. That fills her with worry for Baek, and she thinks she'll never forgive it if he goes down here. Back to Baek, a sudden wall of bones rises in front of him. To dodge the necromancer's attack, he quickly uses his movement skill. But then another attack comes at him, forcing him to use the skill again to get away unharmed. That lets him close the distance, which clearly surprises the necromancer. In panic, the necromancer fires off another attack. But Baek was ready. He even brought the glue. It's the perfect counter for bone attacks, because it melts the bones down. That throws the necromancer into a panic, and he starts screaming curses at Baek. Then he uses Bone Pierce. But once again, Baek slips past it, and in seconds he's behind him. He's just about to finish the guy off. Then a hidden bone attack the necromancer set up in advance erupts from the ground and hits Baek. That impact sends him back a good distance. The necromancer bursts out laughing, mocking how confident Baek looked just a second ago. Baek, though, is starting to feel the strain. Even weakened, the man in front of him is still a 5th-level necromancer. Still, he's exhausted too. If Baek can land one more solid hit, he should be able to bring him down. That's what Baek thinks to himself, but the pain is unbearable. He can barely focus, and if this keeps up, he won't be able to control his teleport anymore. Just as he starts wondering what to do, an idea suddenly hits him and clears his mind. That's it. That's the answer. Meanwhile, the necromancer walks toward him, ready to strike and finish Baek for good. Right at that moment, Baek throws himself backward in desperation. The move catches the necromancer off guard, then makes him laugh. He mocks Baek, saying he's just crawling around like a scared, helpless animal. Just one more. That's all our guy can think about. Just a little more. As he drags himself across the ground, the necromancer keeps taunting him, saying this is where he dies. But the distance between me and the necromancer is 13 meters, so I don't need to cancel my teleport movement. Baek realizes, teleport. Before the necromancer can react, Baek appears right in front of him, face to face. Betting everything on this final move, he puts all his will into one last kamikaze attack. And this time, it works. The skeletons all begin to fall apart, and everyone notices at once as the monsters vanish. Dake wonders if Baek really beat the necromancer. One of the girls drops to the ground in relief. They all survived. As for Baek, he's completely wiped out and just wants to go home as fast as possible. After everything, they're handed over to the Stella Magic Knights and safely brought back to the academy. Then Professor has a not-so-friendly talk with Baek. Baek had said he was only going somewhere with a nice view and fresh air, so the professor asks if a graveyard counts as that now. Baek can only apologize like a kid who knows he messed up. Still, Professor thanks him for protecting his friends. He says breaking rules is bad, but abandoning your friends is even worse. After that little lecture, Professor leaves. Baek feels relieved. He's told his thigh will need a few days to heal, so for now, he just needs rest. Then someone catches his attention. It's that sweet little honor student girl, coming over to thank him. But she still seems uneasy. She asks if she could ever do something like that. If she works as hard as he does, can she become like him? Those words really make Baek pause. Still, something feels off. In the game, Yuseol would never ask anyone that, and he starts wondering if she changed because of him. Because he interfered, Yuseol only went through hardship without getting the kind of growth her story was supposed to have. Even so, hearing her be this honest, Baek tells her she doesn't need to ask that. She's already done what everyone once thought was impossible, and that leaves her stunned. He says he's been watching her, and he knows he's right. That of course leaves her frozen by his words. Baek, though, isn't so sure about how that sounded. It almost makes him seem like he's been stalking her. Embarrassed, he quickly leaves and Giselle is left behind. A girl nobody cared about because she was the daughter of a traitor. But to her, Baek's sincere words truly reach her heart, giving her the courage to move forward and showing how one simple sentence can change everything. Some time passes, and back at Stella Academy, everyone gathers for the awards ceremony. Baek thinks the whole event is kind of overblown, but something else grabs his attention too. Not something, someone. A beautiful girl is there looking weirdly excited for some reason. She quickly notices Baek staring and asks what his problem is. He just plays it off. Then the announcement begins saying 12 brave students will be honored today for fighting the demonic humans. Right after that, the headmaster steps up to the podium. He gives the students a calm little smile, and that alone grabs everyone's attention. This is Elfman, a 9th-level master mage, the peak of humanity. Officially, he's 300 years old, and he always wears that peaceful smile. His nickname is the Massacrator, and he's known as the strongest battle mage in the world. Now, this legendary mage is here to thank the students for what they did. Then, to Baek's bad luck, that terrifying 300-year-old powerhouse walks right up to him. Just making eye contact with him puts huge pressure on Baek, but he refuses to back down, telling himself he won't flinch. That catches Eltman's attention, and the old mage smiles a little, saying that even now Baek is pushing himself as hard as he can. Then he simply walks away, leaving Baek confused about what he meant. After Baek is personally honored by Eltman, the strongest mage around, he receives a letter as his reward. Baek sees it includes a reward of 5 million from the academy, and he figures he won't have to worry about money for a long time. On top of that, he also gets a container holding something like the necromancer's heart, the proof of the enemy he defeated himself. That makes him think of Professor's assistant. If Alice can make a dimensional space, carrying his stuff will get a whole lot easier. With that done, it's time for the system rewards for clearing episode 4. He gets a huge amount of experience. Because he changed the story in a unique way, he also earns bonus rewards, a reduced version of an item from his game, a reduced version of a skill from his game, and more experience. In short, the system made him a little stronger. The only problem is that these bonus rewards have to be chosen, so Baek hesitates over what to take, but he soon decides the most important thing right now is to spend the points on his forward teleport skill. His fight with the necromancer made Baek realize how weak he still was. Hard work alone won't be enough. He needs to use what he knows to push his growth as far as possible. With that, his skill levels up. Now his jump skill reaches 2nd class, with a 12-meter range and up to 3 charges. Just like that, Baek gets a little stronger. He's thrilled because now he can teleport 3 times in a row without needing to cancel the motion, which gives him way more freedom. After all that, he says it's time to head somewhere else. In another place, we find Gazelle in meditation class, sitting there nice and calm. While she stays focused, something suddenly catches her attention. She hears a voice repeating, asking if she can hear it. A butterfly-like figure appears, confusing her. It asks if she can use magic while meditating, and tells her to look up. When she does, she sees crystals floating above her head. Of course she's confused. She didn't calculate any spell formula or cast anything at all. She looks around wondering if anyone else noticed, because even a 1st-level spell should have been sensed by the others if mana had really gathered. Worried, she starts asking herself if this really came from her meditation, and if that mysterious voice expected this. A little time passes, and now it's finally time to eat. Gazelle is happily enjoying a red bean cream bun, thinking that thanks to the rewards she, Baek, and the others got, she can finally afford something this good. Then someone suddenly interrupts her meal. It's a certain prince, walking up to her with that usual sly smile on his face. He comes over and asks if she's joined any club yet. She says no, and Jeremy Scarlvin invites her to join his club. Uneasy, she asks what he wants from her in return. That question catches Jeremy Scarlvin off guard, and he claims there are no strings attached, he just likes her. She doesn't buy it for a second. To her, he only wants to use her like a trophy. Seeing her expression, Jeremy Scarlvin steps closer and says he really won't force any condition on her. All she has to do is join his club and stay by his side. In exchange, he says he can give her many things, then asks if she even knows who he is. In her head, she thinks, I know better than anyone. The Empire is at war with Adalevit's kingdom, her kingdom. So with Prince Jeremy Scarlvin's power behind her, she knows her life could change. She wouldn't have to celebrate over cheap bread anymore, and maybe people would stop calling her a traitor's daughter. Part of her starts to lean toward giving Jeremy Scarlvin what he wants, even though she knows she shouldn't. That small smile on his face shows he thinks his charm and manipulation are working. Then Flame suddenly rushes in, openly acting rude toward her without warning. Jeremy Scarlvin is left stunned by Flame's sudden move, and before Gazelle can react, Flame slaps her. Flame starts shouting, calling Gazelle out while poor Gazelle just stands there red-faced, still caught off guard. Flame says they were supposed to be together, and now this hussy is trying to seduce another guy because she thought Gazelle liked her. Then Flame grabs Tanya by the arm and says they need to talk, while Gazelle is left more confused than ever. The two of them walk off, moving away from Jeremy Scarlvin. Watching them leave, he puts on a cruel little smile. As for the girls, Gazelle is still confused while Flame bluntly says it's over. Honestly, Flame's way of doing things is wild. She slapped Gazelle, dragged her away, and somehow still expects thanks. Meanwhile, Gazelle is just standing there in total shock. Flame explains that if Gazelle had rejected that prince directly, he would have made her life miserable forever. After blowing in and out like a storm, Flame finally leaves, apologizing for the slap, while Gazelle is still trying to process any of this. Still, for all her rough methods, Flame did help, and that leaves her worried. She wonders if she did the right thing. In the original story, Gazelle joins Jeremy Scarlvin's club and gets completely ruined by him. Flame never meant to interfere with the plot, but watching Baek take action pushed her to step in. This was never part of her plan, and in this world, one mistake can cost you your life. Even so, she couldn't stop herself from being afraid after changing something this important. And this is Jeremy Scarlvin they're dealing with. She just hopes he didn't see through the lie she used to protect Giselle. Flame helps in her own way, harsh but kind at heart. Now we cut to Jeremy Scarlvin. While sipping tea, he thinks about Flame and says she's adorable. So adorable that she even told him a little lie just to get away from him. A smile spreads across his face as he finds her very interesting. Very interesting. Then he tells himself, I want her. With complete certainty. Yeah, exactly what she didn't want is happening. Anyway, let's move on to the next day. In class, Veso tells the students that starting today, they'll begin mock battles against monsters. This time, the target is a medium-sized level 3 monster, much harder than the level 1 and 2 monsters they've already fought. He tells them to form teams and beat the monsters using their own strategies. Each team will choose one medium monster and train against it. Then he sends everyone to the Star Dome to pick the terrain they want and hunt their target. They're supposed to choose the medium-sized monster that best fits their fighting style. Both Class A and Class S will do this together, and the evaluation is in 4 days. After hearing that, Giselle immediately thinks about how much she hates group work. Then something catches her eye. Several girls invite Bia to join their team, showing just how easy it is for her to draw people in. Nothing like Giselle. Giselle can only wonder how Bia makes it look so natural. To her, the difference between them is obvious. Bia is always surrounded by people who care about her, while Giselle is not. That hurts because before Bia's kingdom destroyed her family, the people around Giselle used to treat her the same way too. And here's a little background. It's about the two girls, the House of Ice Wolf, and the royal family of Fire, Adolovic. Back when these two families ruled the world of magic, they were always in conflict. From those families came two gifted children, Bia and Giselle. Back then, Giselle thought she was chosen. Now she wonders if she'll ever really get revenge on Adolevit. That thought sinks her even deeper into despair, helplessness, and doubt in herself. But then someone suddenly asks if she's alone. Of course it's Baek, showing up right on time to give the poor girl a little confidence. And he gets straight to it, warmly asking her to pair up with him. The moment he does, Bae notices and starts wondering why he's getting close to another girl. She shoots Giselle a deadly stare. Meanwhile, Giselle is confused by Baek's offer. He explains that if they make a 2-person team, they can earn extra points for using fewer members. That clearly surprises her. He wants to fight level 3 monsters with just the 2 of them. Then one thing about him grabs her attention. It's that confident smile. He asks plainly if Giselle wants to team up with him or not. That one look is enough to shake her. After a small sigh, she finally says yes and accepts. With that settled, Baek says he'll register their pair and heads off. So Giselle is left standing there by herself. Then someone else walks up to her, and Giselle is shocked that this person came to talk to her directly. It's Bia, of course, coming over to call Giselle out for getting close to her guy. Jokes aside, Giselle gets nervous the instant Bia appears. Bia leans in and tells her to behave herself. She even insults her, saying she looks like a pig wearing a pearl necklace. Easy to forget, but yeah, Bia really does have a villain side. Giselle at least has no doubt about that. After landing those sharp words, Bia turns and leaves, and poor Giselle shrinks back into herself again. Remember when I said Bia was jealous over Baek Wolf? She definitely is, especially when you see how happy Giselle looks after pairing up with him. Bia thinks about Giselle. She can join any group she wants, side with anyone she wants, team up with whoever she wants, but Baek is off limits. And while that's going on, there's still one more person nearby. Mateus looks surprised when someone calls out to him. That someone is Bia, still upset, and Mateus asks if something happened. Instead of answering, she asks whether he's already formed a team. He tells her no, so she asks if he wants to team up with her. Mateus answers with a bit of irony, asking if that's really necessary. Honestly, it kind of seems like Bia just wants to make Baek jealous by coming over to Mateus. After bringing up Baek's team to Mateus, Bia makes her real point. They want to take on a special mid-sized monster. As she says that, both of them keep their eyes on Baek standing with Giselle. Then Bia asks Mateus one more time if he wants to team up with her. And of course, with Baek involved, a lot of people suddenly care about this. Mateus agrees. He tells her he's wanted to face Baek for a long time. Bia answers with a sly smile and says she's counting on him. Looking toward them, she thinks about Baek and Giselle and promises herself she'll beat them this time. So yeah, Bia hides her jealousy behind this whole "I just want to beat Baek" excuse. 4 days pass as everyone gets ready. Then the monster combat simulation begins. We cut to a group of students with the professor facing a huge monster. In the end, the professor tells them to get started. And just like that, every team heads out to fight its assigned monster. While that's going on, Flame stretches a little, feeling confident after all her training. She knows taking down a special monster for bonus points or fighting a large one is still too much for her. But if she can beat a mid-level threat alone, she'll get the highest score. Normally, it takes 5 mages of similar level working together to handle a monster like that. Still, with the right element, enough experience, and good timing, someone can beat a monster much stronger than expected. The problem is, Flame uses light magic, so she doesn't have much of an attribute advantage. That makes this harder for her. Even so, when she looks at Giselle and sees she's doing fine, Flame can't help thinking Giselle will do well in this simulation. In the original story, Bia kept Giselle from teaming up with anyone, so she ended up with the worst score possible. But speaking of that, here comes Baek, Flame starts thinking that if Gisela stays by Baek's side, maybe things will turn out differently this time. Just then, a noise pulls Flame's attention away. A team is being praised for defeating its monsters. Right after that, Team 17 gets called up for the test, and that's Flame's team. She gives a quick, confident answer. Then she heads to her test area, passing near the other pairs. As she goes by Baek, she tries to act as cool and graceful as possible, but showing off too much usually backfires. Sure enough, she suddenly trips and nearly crashes face first into the ground. But Baek steps in at the last second and catches her before she can fall. He lets out a small sigh after saving her. Flame gasps a little, caught off guard by it. Then she shyly thanks him for helping her. Baek points out her shoelaces, and from the way Flame reacts, it really feels like Jack untied them on purpose to make her fall. Putting that aside, once her laces are tied again, it's time to begin, and now it's her turn. Flame is taking the test alone. That shocks the others, and they all start wondering how she's supposed to face such a huge monster by herself. They point out that this beast doesn't have any clear weakness, so she can't just beat it with an opposite element. Then the monster charges straight at Flame. That instantly grabs everyone's attention, especially the people worried about her. Flame makes her move and uses Whisper of Petals carried by the wind. In her head, this is the moment to shine, and it works. Her spell traps the monster in place. Right after that, she casts another spell, Material Transmutation. It strengthens the branches from her first magic, tightening the bind around the beast. But she's not done yet. Now it's time to finish this. So she starts charging a much bigger spell, striking a dramatic pose while she does it. Suddenly, the monster breaks free from Flame's magic and rushes at her as fast as it can, and just when it looks ready to slam into her, her spell activates and blasts straight into the monster's mouth. That's Flame showing her skill again, pulling off a clean win. The monster drops right in front of her. Flame completely shuts it down. After that, she lets out a tired breath, relieved it's finally over, while everyone else stares in shock at what she just did. But before Flame can leave, someone calls out to her. She turns and looks genuinely stunned, almost like she can't believe what she's seeing. The reason is simple, it's Baek's group. And standing with him is Mateus, while Baek is right there too, still burning with jealousy over Baek. That strange team surprises everyone, but Flame is even more confused, wondering why those two are working together. As far as she knows, Mateus and Baek shouldn't have any real connection at all. Meanwhile, that jealousy-powered team stands face-to-face with a giant sea monster. Flame quickly judges the matchup. This isn't a normal monster, and Baek and Mateus are working with fire, earth, and lightning. But their enemy is a water-type demonic fish with resistance to fire, and it can even fly. In other words, it's the perfect bad matchup for them. Even so, they're aiming not just for a special mid-sized monster, but for the highest score possible despite the attribute disadvantage. Then the winged fish starts to rise into the air in front of them. It climbs higher and higher, making it clear this fight won't be easy. Baek says it's time to move and gets into position. But then everyone notices something odd about their formation. Mateus, a close-range mage, is standing behind Baek. Mateus gives a small laugh. Then, without warning, he makes his move and dashes forward at top speed. A moment later, his magic launches him into the air. He's fully confident and ready to attack. Some of the watching students admit the jump was impressive, but they still doubt it'll be enough to reach the flying monster. Others point out he can't keep jumping in midair, so they start wondering what his plan really is. Mateus answers with action. Using magic, he creates a stone platform. He lands on it and gets another boost from below with fire magic. Just like that, the plan comes together. Backed by Baek's fire magic, he launches even farther sideways, all while channeling more power. Then he uses a giant earth element leap and lands a brutal hit. The flying fish gets smashed down to the ground at full speed. Right after that, Mateus starts casting another spell. A series of rocks rises up and traps the dark fish monster. Still, it doesn't last long. The beast breaks out without much trouble. Back on the ground, Mateus says that was expected, then grins and mutters that it's already too late, because Baek's spell is ready. And then it happens. Baek steps in, surrounded by flames, striking a flashy pose before attacking. Her magic slams hard into the winged fish. At the same time, Mateus moves in beside her and starts channeling lightning magic. With that sly smile on his face, he blasts the monster with an electric strike, combining his attack with Baek's. Thanks to that teamwork and strategy, they bring down the flying monster. Everyone is stunned by how strong that jealousy-fueled duo turned out to be. They walk away like it was nothing, leaving everyone else thinking the two of them are seriously brilliant. Baek wears a small satisfied smile and thinks of one person. Of course, Baek. Looking his way, she tells herself that no matter what he chooses now, he won't beat her. She keeps watching his team and thinks that this time she won. But Baek acts like it's no big deal and asks for 5 monsters to be summoned at once. That leaves Baek and everyone else completely shocked by what Baek just said. Some students mention the rumors they've heard about him, and now everyone is wondering if Baek is actually serious. And there he is, standing in the middle of 5 summoned monsters. The former monster expert quickly noticed them. He looked over the summons. A Remy Hadum, a Shadow Bull, a Kaden, a Sliminami, and last, a sharp-winged bat. Seeing that lineup, Baek asked Mateus what he was thinking. Laughing, he said he wanted to see what Baek was planning. He kept watching him beside the studious girl, eager to find out. Then our human spoke up. He said Baek could earn 5 extra points here because he was a knight, but that didn't seem true for Giselle, the calm bishop, so this plan didn't look very smart. Our human, though, just laughed again. Calm and sure of himself, he said the plan only works because of Giselle, because she's the bishop. That answer left the professor curious, as they were told to begin. On the human side, the 5 monsters started moving. He asked if she could really do this. Giselle admitted she wasn't fully confident, but in the end he told her to trust him, because he trusted her. That caught her off guard. She thought to herself that Baek really was unbelievable. That brought back a memory from one night, when they had gone somewhere together and she was lost in thought. Back then Baek noticed right away. She asked why he had picked her for his team, saying someone like him could have chosen someone more useful. For a moment he stayed quiet after hearing that. Then he admitted there were amazing people around them. Baya was better in raw magic power and Flame was far better at control. But to Giselle's surprise, he still said that out of all of them she was the best to him. With a warm smile he told her she just needed a little more faith in herself. After saying that, he simply urged her to keep moving. Those words truly stayed with her. And now, even with her hand shaking on her staff, she was sure of one thing. She still didn't fully understand Baek, but he had chosen her for a reason. So for his sake she would show everyone what she could do. And just like that, it began. As her magic gathered and echoed around her, Giselle almost looked angelic. It was a sensory resonance skill. One observer explained that even level 6 mages can only use that technique at their absolute best. It was dangerous too. If she lost focus for even a split second, she might never control mana again. Even so, he thought no less should be expected from the future Queen of Ice. Baek took his stance and told himself it was time. His plan was to face all 5 monsters with only himself and Giselle. Then he made his move, using Flash to rush straight at them. He unleashed a flurry of sword strikes on one of the monsters. Suddenly something caught his eye. He jumped back from the toad as fast as he could. One step was done. Now it was time to focus on the shadow bull. But the bull in turn noticed something too. Its eyes locked onto the toad's horn, because it had turned red. That alone was enough to make the bull jealous. Baek realized everything was going exactly as planned. The bull's jealousy had kicked in. That meant the strategy was working. This was how he planned to fight all 5 monsters at once. Make the slime, the bat, the pelican, every one of them start fighting each other. The monsters' behavior shocked everyone watching, and people were left wondering why they had suddenly turned on one another. That was exactly what Baek wanted. He had created a situation where the monsters hurt each other, a strategy like using your enemies against themselves, straight out of Sun Tzu. The more experienced players in A Little World had long started asking how a small party could beat a whole group of monsters. The answer they found was simple. Use each monster's traits against it. First, Baek needed to wound the toad. That pain would trigger a red light in its horn. The bull would get angry and charge the toad out of jealousy. Once enraged, it would blast sand from its body in every direction. And when that happened, the sand would touch the slime, making it produce a huge amount of water to stop itself from drying out. Watching the water build up around them, Baek knew it was all working. He looked ahead confidently. Now it was time for the next step. With all that water around, the pelican started screeching far louder than before. And to finish the setup, those cries stirred up the giant bat. The bat attacked the pelican, which struck back at the slime, and the slime hit the pelican again, until it turned into a full brawl. That plan caught the attention of several professors watching nearby. The monster expert admitted he had never thought of something like this before. Another professor pointed out something just as amazing. Giselle's focus. Even in total chaos, she kept concentrating and held on to as much energy as possible. They said that was only possible because Baek and Giselle trusted each other that much. Then something suddenly caught Baek's attention. The pelican was charging straight toward Giselle while she was still concentrating. Using Flash, Baek reached her just in time. He knocked the pelican away and protected her. He told himself he had managed to save her. But right after that, another attack came flying at Giselle. She was still fully focused. Once again, he got there in time and kept her from losing concentration. Watching all of this, Mateus drew Bia's attention. He looked at Baek and said that right now, to Bia's surprise, Baek looked like the perfect knight for her. Mateus was really shipping them hard. To him, Baek was the exact image of a knight protecting a princess, and his actions were proving it. Meanwhile, on Giselle's side, her concentration had reached its peak and was almost complete. All that energy around her was gathering into one center. She slowly opened her eyes. At that moment, Giselle awakened her crystal flower. A huge frozen crystal flower bloomed around her, covering the field in ice crystals. That beautiful, breathtaking magic left everyone there stunned. They could only stare at the flower as it kept growing. With Giselle at its center, everyone described it with one simple word: majestic. Then the flower slowly began to break apart. Giselle firmly called for it to shatter. And just like that, a massive burst of mana exploded across the field. It hit every monster caught in the middle. In a single second, with one attack, Giselle brought them all down. But it still wasn't over. To everyone's shock, the monsters got back up when they thought the battle had ended. Some people started saying it was a shame her first strike hadn't been enough. But Giselle wasn't done. She calmly gathered another spell in one hand, ready to finish it. She called out, "Pulverize." Her magic spread over the whole battlefield and locked onto every monster. Then another huge explosion erupted, with Giselle at its core, and this time the monsters were completely defeated. Standing before the result of that massive attack, Giselle could only stare in shock, thinking, "I did that?" She could hardly believe her magic was enough to do something like this. That was all she could think as she looked at what was in front of her. He was right. She remembered that night again, when he told her his plan. At the time, she was stunned and asked if he had gone crazy, but he simply answered that he knew she could do it. He told her that if she couldn't believe in herself, then she should believe in him, the one who believed in her. Before he appeared, she had nothing. She was lost, didn't know where to go, and didn't even have the confidence to say what she wanted. But then came that bright, gentle light that pulled her eyes toward it without her even meaning to. Like the sun, it warmed her heart and showed her the way out of that deep darkness. That sight, that person. To her now, he had become everything. Now she has a light she can follow, so she doesn't have to wander in the dark anymore. With that, Team 32's test came to an end, and they passed. And that little smile on her face? Come on, that's too much. I already lost my heart once. I can't fall for her all over again. Then our guy comments on it. The final test scores are in. Baek takes first with 199 points, while Matthias and Bia tie for second with 127. After that, we cut to Matthias and Bia looking at the results, and Matthias admits they really did lose. Then Bia surprises everyone. She admits their opponents did great and says they need to own up to their mistakes this time. Even Matthias is caught off guard by that reaction. This time, Baek has a strange thought in her head. What if my knight was actually my beloved Baek? That's what she thinks while looking at Matthias. But then another thought hits her. Why is that commoner so obsessed with her? If he were mine, shouldn't he have chosen to stay by my side forever? Since the two of us are perfect for each other. And just like that, I'm safe again. My tiny queen stole my heart back. She's perfect. Seriously. She leaves the area thinking she needs to look into Baek even more. Suddenly something grabs her attention. Someone is standing there, staring right at her. That makes her wonder if this person came because of her loss to Baek. As she walks past, she decides this person is seriously annoying. And then we shift to this new girl. With that sharp, tempting look, she tells herself it's still far from over. Now we cut to Flame, calmly thinking things through. She's confused because something feels off. The crystal flower wasn't supposed to appear yet. That spell was meant to be something Giselle learned much later, after overcoming her struggles. It was supposed to become her signature magic, the sign that her confidence had finally returned. So Flame starts thinking about the magic, and that new confidence must have come from our guy, Baek. In the original story, Matthias and Giselle were supposed to fully connect through their feelings, while the world was falling apart. But what if there was someone in the story she never knew about? What if some minor character loved her? And when the world collapsed, he chose to sacrifice himself and go back in time? That's the theory Flame comes up with, using all her wild imagination. She figures he chose the girl he loved, even if it cost him his life, and made everyone forget him. Then she wonders, doesn't that hurt him at all? Giving up yourself just to reach something you want for someone else. She feels like she can understand that pain. Now we go to the source of all Flame's fanfic fuel, Baek, who gets a message in front of him. Episode 5 completed. He also gains a huge amount of experience. The message says he picked the best route forward for the story, and as promised, his reward will be a Castellatio. Seeing that, he wonders what he should take this time. His skills are already in good shape, so he figures it's better to get something useful for the next episode. So he chooses an item, Ifanel's leaf key. After a system ping, the reward is delivered, and this key isn't just some old artifact. It's a very rare item only top players can get. It opens the way to a place of light where spirits live, but to use it, he'll need to leave the academy. That's the problem. After the necromancer incident, sneaking out alone got way harder. But then he gets an idea. The next day arrives. After writing a long report about his background, poor parents, no money, the usual story, he decides it's time to find a club, one that can help him get out of the academy. So Baek goes to check which club might let him slip away. Still, he's unsure which one to join. There are tons of clubs, but only a few would give him permission to leave, so he knows he has to choose carefully. Then something catches his eye. It's Giselle. He asks if she's here because of the clubs too, and she gives him a nervous, vague answer. He jokes that a lot of people must be trying to recruit her. The funny part is, she's basically in the antisocial club. Giselle thinks that after the last test, the Academy's opinion of her has completely changed, and she probably already knows it. A little embarrassed, she tells him, picking a club takes careful thought. While they're talking, someone else walks over, Matthias coming to greet him. And our guy is basically thinking, what's with this now? But Matthias only came to praise Baek for the test, and for what happened with the necromancer too. That leaves Baek a bit uneasy as Matthias says he came just to tell him he admires him. With a look that will definitely feed the shippers, Matthias says Baek really is special. That leaves Baek standing there, completely done with this weird energy. Matthias just keeps going on. Then Baek answers that of course he sees things differently. He's a commoner, so he has to think in different ways all the time. After that, he suddenly asks Matthias what he did over the weekend, and Matthias is surprised by the question. Then to everyone's shock, Matthias says he was studying. Baek thinks he's joking and tells him to stop lying, but Matthias says he's serious. He explains that he really has been studying and training hard on weekends. Baek is surprised because that doesn't really fit Matthias's usual personality, but Matthias says something recently changed him. That only makes things more confusing for Baek, since this kind of change was supposed to happen later in the story. Then Gazelle asks if he's training in the dungeon, and he says yes. He adds that if it weren't for Gazelle that day, things could have gotten dangerous, back when she interrupted both him and Ian. Baek starts thinking about that fight. In the original story, Ian was supposed to lose easily, but because of his actions, things didn't go that way, and he was also the one who met Flame, not Ian, who keeps getting pushed around by fate. Still, Baek decides there's nothing to complain about. Both Matthias and Ian should end up even stronger than before. Unlike someone fate keeps messing with, those two were born lucky, and their growth should help a lot more in reaching a happy ending. Then Matthias cuts into his thoughts, and to the delight of the people shipping them, happily suggests they join a club together, while Gazelle reacts immediately. As for Baek, his ideal club would be quiet, calm, easygoing, and not ask too much. Basically one with full benefits too. The list is so long you could lose track just hearing all his demands. Poor Gisela, full of hope, asks if a club like that really exists. Of course it doesn't. He was just joking. Still, it really would be perfect for her. Then Matthias gets both of their attention. He says the perfect answer is simple. They should just make their own club. That idea leaves both of them stunned. Baek asks if Matthias really thinks something like that is so easy, and Matthias says yes. So Baek figures that if Matthias is saying it, maybe it actually can work. But before they go any further, Baek asks what Matthias would even gain from this, since it doesn't seem like Baek can offer him anything. But of course I'm going to, that way I can stay close to you. Remember? I told you that you're special, Matthias says, laying it on pretty thick. That reaction makes it even clearer to him. One of Matthias's biggest issues, maybe his biggest one, is loneliness. He's that classic lonely genius, good at everything, but stuck by himself. Hopefully Matthias gets a really strong character arc from all this. Anyway, to Matthias's relief, Baek agrees to start a club with him, and while he's at it, he pulls Gazelle into the group too, leaving her flustered. Baek can't help getting ideas. In the original story, those two end up together, so maybe Gazelle being near Matthias will help keep him in check. So what kind of club are they going to make? An adventure club. Honestly, it's perfect. Baek gets to go out, Gazelle gets good food, and Matthias won't be stuck alone. But there's a catch. Gazelle points out they need a faculty advisor and a minimum number of members. Matthias confidently says he can handle the member problem. The hard part will be getting an advisor and the approval seals the club needs. That surprises Baek, so he asks why. As far as he knows, Matthias should have no trouble dealing with teachers. Matthias makes it clear he thinks most of them are useless. Maybe not in those exact words, but that's the idea. Then he heads off, saying he'll take care of the club's approval stamps. Baek knows those seals aren't easy to get, but with Matthias involved, there's probably only one person he'd go to. And in the academy's first tower, we move to the vice principal's office. He's clearly surprised to see this visitor. Of course, that visitor is Matthias. He casually says it's been a while, and even calls the academy's vice principal Grandpa. So what happens next? Will Baek manage to slip away and grow even stronger? Will Gazelle get the fun food trip she wants? For now, we still don't have those answers. But one thing is certain, we've reached the final chapter for now, and that's also where Season 1 of the Manhwa ends. So now we have to wait a bit for Season 2. And here's a message from the illustrator. A sweet little note. Back then, Matthias went to the vice principal with his club proposal, looking way too pleased with himself while the old man played nice. Still, the vice principal was wondering what this brat was doing here, clearly annoyed by Matthias from the start. Matthias placed the club proposal on the desk. With a big smile, he said it was the club application form and told him to stamp it. The vice principal reached for it and said he needed to check whether it met the requirements first. But Matthias stopped him. He told him not to bother reading it and to just stamp the paper. Then he gave him a sharp look like he was daring him to refuse. The vice principal swallowed his pride, knowing he couldn't turn him down. Looking at Matthias, he reminded himself that this was that man's heir, someone he couldn't openly oppose. And when power talks, people with common sense obey, so he stamped it. In the end, Matthias left the academy office, while the vice principal watched him go. Once the door closed, he lowered his head slightly. With a bitter look, he thought Matthias was just like his father, arrogant and unbearable. As he sat back down, he told himself this wouldn't last forever. Someday he'd kill that arrogant boy himself. Sometime later, after classes, we find Jackie. She's upset, staring at her papers and blaming herself. She thinks she should have shown a better side of herself, that nerves ruined everything, and that she could have done better than Flame. And right then, Flame walks over and praises Jackie's presentation from earlier. With a warm smile, she tells her not to worry about what the professor said, because she actually did really well. But Jackie isn't having it. She brushes her off and walks away. That leaves Flame standing there awkwardly. Then Baek walks up to Flame and says it's not a big deal. He asks if she's close to any professors, because he wants to start a club and needs someone to speak to one for him. Flame asks why he can't do it himself. He admits that since she's well-liked and he definitely isn't, things probably won't go well if he tries talking to them. She points out that the teachers already don't like Baek much. He talks back, sleeps in class, and it's honestly a miracle he hasn't gotten a formal warning yet. The complaints keep coming, and just as she's about to call him annoying, something clicks in her head. She asks if he used to be close with Assistant Professor Ernest. A few minutes later, while walking down the hall, Baek realizes assistant professors can also serve as club advisors. He'd been so focused on the game's main story that he never even thought about it. Then something catches his eye. He spots a professor coming out of a room right in front of him. There's something suspicious about that smile on her face. After she leaves, he heads into that room, Alice's office, with a cheerful grin. But when he gets inside, he finds Alice completely shaken. For some reason, she looks devastated and is barely holding back tears. She quickly wipes her eyes and asks why he's here, while Baek asks what happened. She struggles to explain. Baek glances at the scattered papers on the floor, then asks what happened to the thesis she'd been working on. Her hand is trembling. Trying to hide how she feels, she says she handed it to Professor Madria. The conference is coming soon, and Madria plans to present the thesis as if it were hers, while telling Alice she should be grateful for the chance. Alice keeps talking, saying she should be happy and accept it, while Baek listens. Then he steps closer and tells her the truth. She was robbed. He asks if her name will at least appear on the thesis she wrote by herself. Alice says it's fine, and calls it a kind of learning experience. Baek immediately realizes this is definitely not the time to ask her to be his club advisor. Looking at the board, he tells himself Professor Madria will solve the formula soon enough. But before that, he wants Alice to finish it herself. So he gets her attention and brings up something else. The problem she was working on with him before. That makes her ask if he means the random sequence convergence technique. She explains that it's a problem that's gone unsolved for 300 years, but she feels like if she solves one part of it, she might finally see the path forward. Then Baek catches her off guard by saying he can solve that part. Shocked, she asks what he just said. Does he really know how? He says yes, but only by chance, so he doesn't fully understand it himself. He walks to the board and starts writing. Watching this leaves Alice stunned. After finishing, he tells her things will be different for her. Alice quickly recognizes the formula and starts explaining how it connects to a major coefficient theory. While she excitedly talks through it, Baek quietly smiles to himself, watching how focused she is. As he leaves her office, he thinks about how Alice really is a genius. Unlike him who only copied something he saw in a game, she's someone who could truly change humanity's future. His role here is done. Now he just has to trust her talent. After that, with Alice's help, he successfully founded the Delicious Restaurant Club. And as club leader, he received a pass that lets him leave the academy. It may have raised a few suspicions, but in the end, getting that free pass was a good thing. So as he walks through the streets, Baek tells himself everything will be fine as long as he doesn't cause any trouble. That brings him to the World Tree's third branch, the Orchard of the Dutch Tree. As he walks through it, he admits the place is beautiful. Way better than how it looked in the game. Then a dark-haired elf woman greets him with a bright smile, pleased to meet a mage from the Stella Academy. The elf says he hopes his honest heart will reach Mother Earth too. As he answered, he remembered how director Welty Welton once saved the second World Tree when it was burning and close to dying. Because of that, many elves recognize the Academy uniform and treat him kindly. Their warm welcome catches his attention, and he can't help thinking there are way too many beautiful people here, just like in the game. Still, one elf stands above the rest, the Elf King, Flower Kotsiorian. His beauty is almost godlike, and a lot of male players fell for him. He even got the most fan art in the game. Elves in this world are born without a set gender. When they find true love, their body changes to match their partner. If they fall for a man, they become female. If they fall for a woman, they become male. Flower Kotsiorian was born with a very feminine look, but since he had never found true love, his gender had never fully settled. But in the game, after falling for Flame, he became completely male. As he walked through the forest, he remembered there wasn't a single route where Flower Kotsiorian chose to become a woman. That crushed a lot of male players. And honestly, our guy was a big fan of the Elf King too. After thinking that over, he smiles and says he's finally found it. He now stands in front of the hidden dungeon, the Garden of the Divinity Ifanel. Baek had already raised his skills to the 6th stage, so he should be ready for the episode ahead. He opens the system and says he's going to take the grass key and Ifanel. Holding the key, he says it's a good thing he can use this even earlier than he expected. There's also that dungeon portal tied to this same key. Then the system warns him, once he enters, anyone else with this key will know the dungeon has been opened too. He remembers seeing that message in the game, but it never led to any special event between players. So in the end, he opens the dungeon anyway. Sure, nothing will happen as the system announces that the gate to the Garden of the Divinity has opened. In the Elven Kingdom, at the birthplace of the Celestial Spirit Tree, someone lies in bed, still half asleep, then slowly gets up. They step away from the bed and open the window. That person is none other than the Elf King himself, Florisurum, who sleepily says the world feels peaceful today. Watching the birds in the sky, he wonders when he'll ever be able to travel as freely as they do. With a sad little smile, he admits he envies the birds. Then suddenly he senses that someone has entered the Garden of the Divinity. That person's energy grabs his attention right away. Covering his mouth, he wonders if someone really entered the secret garden where Ifanel sleeps. No one should be able to get in there, so who is it? A chill runs through him, and he tells himself this is bad timing. He grabs his clothes and heads for his bedroom door, but he stops himself. He says he has to stay calm. He's waited for decades, so he can't rush now. Uneasy, he thinks that if the curse activates again, there's no telling who will lose their mind. So he decides to wait until the coming World Tree anniversary. Then he can go there and see what's really happening. Meanwhile, our human keeps sneezing because of all the pollen in the area when roots suddenly attack him. Thanks to Flash, he dodges in time. He regains his footing and looks up at the giant plant. He realizes a straight fight here would take forever. So he pulls out a bottle and says this is exactly why he made fire potions with alchemy. He throws the potion at the plant and sets it on fire. Then he draws his sword, uses Flash upward, and spots its core. With one strike, he hits that core dead on, and the plant goes down. After beating the monster, he gets his reward. He tells himself he's had enough of weak enemies. His aura has grown so much that even this plant couldn't handle him anymore. After gathering that aura, something catches his eye. Standing before it, he says it's time to reach his real goal. At last, he enters the boss room of the dungeon. As he walks through the place, he can't hide his surprise. His eyes land on a statue, and he says that must be the divinity, Ifanel, one of the world's most mysterious beings. Divinities are pure souls that trained for hundreds of years, reached enlightenment, and became something new. Even in this game, there aren't many of them, but he quickly realizes the one in front of him isn't a complete divinity. Before the woman before him could fully become one, her heart was stolen, leaving her trapped forever in stone. He lets out a small breath and steps closer. Right then, the gravity in the room grows heavier. He thinks about the crushing mana pressure. Even dead, a divinity is still a divinity. But he can't give up now. He pushes himself with everything he has, just to stay standing. With great effort, he moves closer to the statue. Once he gets near, he drops to his knees and starts breathing hard. Then the system surprises him. The trait experience for mana leakage syndrome has increased, and because of that, he takes a long breath and realizes he can finally breathe normally here. The system also tells him his stats have gone up. This place is a natural training ground left behind by the divinity. It's one of the chances mages in this game were desperate to find a mana vein. Training here gives results 100 times better than normal, and the divinity's energy flowing through his body sharply boosts his affinity with nature too. He gives a crooked smile and thinks that in other words, he went through all that just to find a training academy. But before anything else, he looks at that statue and takes the hidden artifact into his hands, the branch full of resentment. Its info shows it's a rare ranked item. Its special trait is resentment, and its main effect is to make people's resentment grow even stronger. With this, he'll be able to face the boss of Episode 8, Visura Mishera. Now that he has it, it's time to focus on training. A few weeks later, his mana leakage is level 3, with strength up 8%, agility up 12%, and sensitivity up 20%. Looking at that, he says his stats are now around 2.5 stars, but as he keeps training, he knows he still has a long way to go. Every main character in this game has 4-star abilities or more. In this world, he has no master to teach him swordsmanship. Since the knights disappeared years ago, that's why he has to repeat the basics over and over, thrusting and slashing to hit his enemy's vital points with force. I need to push harder. He tells himself he has to cut through flesh and bone and train until he spits blood. That's all on his mind. Then suddenly he feels pain in his chest. He starts coughing as the system tells him he has partially gained a special mana breathing method. Notification: divine breathing has been obtained. The message catches him off guard. Then his vision starts to blur, and little by little he loses consciousness. But before he fully blacks out, he hears a voice shouting at him, asking if he can hear its voice, and telling him to answer already. Startled, he thinks he's hearing a spirit or something. He wonders where this voice in his head is coming from, and if he's losing it. When he turns around, that same voice asks if he finally heard it. That strange voice is coming from the statue of the sleeping divinity. Completely confused, he wonders if a divinity really just spoke to him. Half panicked, he blurts out that he's talking to a corpse. She instantly snaps back that she's not dead, calling him an idiot human. She says she's been talking to him this whole time. He just couldn't hear her. Then she adds that he must have become a being like her for a moment, since he just breathed the same way she does. That makes him remember the message he got a few seconds earlier about gaining a skill. That skill is divine breathing. It lets the user connect with nature, greatly increases the flow of mana through the blood, and lasts up to 15 seconds, but it also causes divine erosion. Looking over the skill, he realizes it's insanely strong despite the short time limit. It can instantly raise his physical stats to a 4-star level. The only real downside is the penalty: essence erosion. That basically means he could lose his human body. A person's essence is held together by mana, and for someone with mana leakage syndrome, that erosion could cost him his life for good. He understands this is the kind of skill that shortens his lifespan, the more he uses it. Still, he can't dwell on that now. He forces himself to think positively. No matter what, he just gained a skill he can use in deadly situations. The determination in his eyes catches the goddess's attention. She says it's fascinating. This is only the second time a human has used divine breathing. His existence feels weak, just like that other person's, and with so little mana in him, he almost seems like he doesn't belong to this world. Baek is shocked to hear that this other person used a sword too and was loved by both magic and the divinities. He quickly asks if he can hear more about that person. There was never any swordsman like that in his game, so whoever it was had to be strong enough to defeat a god. But Ifanel shuts that down right away. The 12 disciples of the first mage, including that knight, are all dead. Then catching him off guard, she asks if he wants her to teach him. She explains that she was this person's successor, so she recorded all of his breathing methods and sword techniques. Still, there was one condition. She can't leave this place or speak to anyone else. In her own words, she's basically dead already. Then she asks for one thing in return: recover her heart and save her. That was the answer he had hoped for, but there was a problem. He apologizes to Ifanel and says that's impossible for him. With his current strength, he can't take the heart of another god. For a moment, the place goes quiet. At last, she says that's fine. If not a divine heart, then even the pure heart of a beast will do. That makes him ask if using something like that would cost her most of her power. She says she doesn't care. Losing her power is better than being trapped here forever. Hearing that, he agrees. Getting the heart of an ordinary divine beast isn't impossible. That's actually why he was training here in the first place. The familiar contract ceremony is coming soon, and before then he'll run into plenty of divine beasts. That should give him a good chance to find a heart, so he promises FNL he'll bring one back. She thanks him and says she'll wait, but before he goes, there's something she wants to give him. She tells him to check the pillar behind her. When he takes it, she says it's proof that the two of them are friends. It turns out to be Ifanel's flower necklace, a sign that he became her friend without any special skill involved. He slips it into his pocket and thinks he's never seen this item in the game before. If nothing else, he jokes he could probably use it as firewood in an emergency. Poor thing, what a goodbye gift. But right after that dumb thought, he remembers Ifanel is a god. Looking at the necklace, he suddenly changes his tune. This is also a divine symbol, which means it could be really useful. Nearby, the girl drops to her knees in shock. She's staring at the huge formula written on the board. Under her breath, she says she did it. After that, she walks back to her desk and smiles as she writes. Then she says out loud that a new generation will begin tomorrow and Baek would be happy to see it. She writes his name there too. The Dwarf Kingdom, capital of the Black Iron Empire. Here mages and alchemists from all over the world have gathered, and this is where Baek arrives with Alice. Today is the conference. The location changes every year, and this time it's being held at the Dwarf Kingdom's top alchemy school, the Golden Light Academy. Since the dwarves led the way in material magic research, everything here is on a whole different scale. On top of that, the greatest alchemist of all, the golden alchemist Kun Cordain, is joining the conference too. Baek realizes that means this is the perfect chance to reveal Alice's research. Then she pulls him out of his thoughts. Alice is clearly nervous. She says this research is what Majera spent her whole life on, and he can't tell if Alice is too nice or just foolish for worrying about that woman, so he tells her not to stress about it. With a small smile, he reminds her she isn't stealing Majera's work. To give her more confidence, he says it straight. Alice is simply more talented than Majera. That helps a little. She thanks him, and the two head inside. There, in the first session, Professor Majera of Stella Academy greets everyone and begins her presentation on the red alpha-type potion. When she finishes, the whole hall breaks into applause. Around him, Baek hears people calling Majera amazing, brilliant, talented, and more. That just irritates him more. Majera is proudly showing off a theory Alice made on her own as if it belongs to her. As he watches Majera on stage, he tells himself there are plenty of ways to take her down, but it's better to wait for the main event. Then Alice is introduced as an assistant professor from Stella Academy. She's still nervous and stumbles through her greeting, but manages to say she's an alchemist from the academy. Some people in the crowd clearly aren't interested, and Baek notices right away. But when he hears the presentation is about to begin, a faint smile appears on his face. Alice announces that her topic is a full theoretical understanding of the random convergence technique. The moment she says that, everyone is stunned. Someone asks if she even understands what she's saying. She answers yes and says this is an incredible chance, especially for someone like her. Then another voice challenges her. How could everyone here possibly accept what she just claimed? Her hand trembles a little, but she answers firmly. They'll accept it the same way alchemists accept anything, through proof. That shocks part of the crowd. People argue that random convergence makes no sense, and that mixing magic engineering with alchemy is impossible from the start. In the middle of all that noise, one person has stayed silent until now, the Golden Alchemist himself. He calls for quiet and says declaring something impossible just because many people failed isn't alchemical at all. Then he adds that he can hardly wait. He wants to hear what this young alchemist has to say. That lifts Alice's spirits, and he tells her to present the truth she discovered. Her cheeks turn a little pink. But before she can continue, someone suddenly shouts that they object. It's Majera. Before the presentation goes on, she says she wants to question its authenticity. Cordain asks what she means by that. Majera puts on a nasty look and accuses Alice of plagiarism. That claim catches Alice and the entire hall completely off guard. Cordain bursts out laughing and says things just got interesting. He warns Majera that if she can't prove Alice plagiarized, she knows what will happen to her. Majera answers that of course she knows. She walks onto the stage and says there are 5 main riddles in the random convergence technique. Only by solving all 5 can alchemy and magic engineering be brought into harmony. According to her, the academic world has only solved 2 of those riddles, and even those were incomplete. And she claims she personally solved 4 of the 5. She adds that Alice was also her alchemy student, as well as her assistant professor. The whole place erupts. And the real plagiarist, Majera, boldly says she has no doubt Alice's thesis is actually hers. She even laughs, saying that even if Alice solved the 5th piece, does anyone really believe a girl this shaken and scared solved the other 4 on her own? Staring straight at her, Majera calls Alice an unpredictable creature. Smiling, she says she admits Alice is a genius with incredible skill, but her life as an alchemist ends here, and her talent will belong to Majera forever. After all that, Majera steps up to Alice and asks what she has to say for herself. Alice's throat tightens. She knew something like this might happen, but now her mind goes blank and she doesn't know what to do. Then Baek's words come back to her. If something is too hard to do alone, ask for help. Still nervous, she raises her hand and tells everyone she'd like to call someone to the stage to support her. Cordain asks who that person is. She says it's the co-author of this thesis. With trembling hands, she points him out. Looking toward the back, she calls for her student, our human Baek. Of course, he's caught off guard. He had no idea she'd list him as a co-author and wonders if Alice really did that. As he walks to the stage, people start whispering about what a student this young could possibly change. Cordain, meanwhile, looks even more interested. He watches Baek and says he's excited to see what happens next. Mishera turns to look at him. He looks back at Mishera, then calmly walks right past her. On the way, he moves close enough to use his item on her. The system immediately notifies him that the special effect of the resentment-filled branch has activated, targeting Mishera. She clicks her tongue and calls him rude. He answers with a faint smirk, thinking it worked. Then he stops before the crowd and says that first he'd like to understand Mishera's point of view. He adds that there's a saying, seeing something once is better than hearing about it 100 times. With a confident grin, he proposes a simple answer. Why not have them solve the random convergence technique right here together? That makes everyone wonder if he's challenging her to a competition. Even beside him, Alice is still very nervous. Caught off guard, he asked if she trusted him. Even nervous, she said yes. He told her he'd been watching her this whole time, and he knew she could do it. All she had to do was trust herself as much as he trusted her. Hearing that, she gathered a little courage. Even so, she still wondered if she could really do it. But pushing past those thoughts, she adjusted her glasses and spoke anyway. Baek was right. She brushed back her ponytail and decided to trust everything they had done together until now. Then she called Majera's attention. Majera looked over, and with that smug attitude, said it was time to tear her down. But Alicia faced her with full confidence, ready to put Majera in her place. The random sequence convergence technique. 300 years ago, an alchemist discovered a shocking method that could explain this formula. But he died in a bathroom accident, and the story spread so far that the formula is still famous today. I was about to make a joke about dying in a bathroom, but honestly, sorry for killing the mood. I have a close friend whose father died like that. So seriously, when you use the bathroom, please don't climb on top of the toilet. There's an important artery that runs from your lower body down your leg, and if it's cut, it can be really dangerous. So yeah, be careful. Even using a toilet has a right way. Anyway, back to the story. Since then, countless alchemists had tried to solve the formula. None of them succeeded, and eventually people stopped trying. That's why it came to be seen as impossible. Someone watching all this with interest was Captain Kame, from the Great New Moon Tower's 13th Assault Assassin Unit. Beside him was Vice Captain Hygiene Mikoran, a dark-haired woman who asked what was so interesting here, since she was almost falling asleep from boredom. The two stayed hidden as she wondered if Majera really was the shadow demon human. Looking toward the stage, she thought this whole mission had been a failure. Kame, though, stayed silent. That made her let out a small sigh and ask if he really believed that old man's words. Then something suddenly caught her attention. She looked back at the stage and felt the whole hall's mood had changed. Quarter's eyes went wide, staring at the formulas. He said they were similar, but solved in slightly different ways. Kame could tell Alicia's analysis and answer were much clearer and simpler than Majera's, and there was even a small difference in their final results. After that, they moved on to the second dilemma. A lot of people were stunned. They pointed out that this problem usually took around 200 lines to solve, but Alicia did it in just 12. Majera, on the other hand, had been watching everything up to this point with a faint smile, telling herself the real challenge was only starting now. Now they were tackling the third dilemma, and people wondered if they could actually solve it. This was a problem that had never been solved before. Quarter jumped from his seat in shock, asking if it had really been solved. He said that even if Majera solved it too, Alicia's answer was still better. Majera burned with jealousy, wondering how Alicia had done it. As everyone's eyes turned to Alicia, Baek wore a quiet, proud smile. Up to now, past alchemists had treated the 5 dilemmas as separate problems. Alicia just thought about them differently. She saw all 5 riddles as connected, and solved them in one sweep. That was the clear difference between her and Majera, even though both had made it this far. That was when the gap between them really began to show. Majera started trembling, trying to figure out how this section was supposed to end. She looked at the board and realized there was no more space, so she shouted for someone to bring another blackboard. But before the yelling could continue, a voice rang through the hall. "I'm finished." Majera froze and glanced over. Alicia stood there calm and sure of herself. Just like that moment in the game, she declared that everyone here was now witnessing the complete theoretical understanding of the random sequence convergence technique. The whole hall erupted, shouting that this was insane, that they were watching history. As the cheers poured in, Alicia smiled brightly. Then she looked at our human and silently thanked him, thinking none of this would have happened without him. But suddenly someone else drew her attention. It was Majera, wrapped in a strange aura, repeating Alicia's name over and over. That dark energy spread across the stage. Furious, she demanded to know how long Alicia planned to keep mocking her. She claimed Alicia had only changed the thesis she stole, and was still pretending it was hers while smiling like that. Right away, our human stepped in front of Alicia. At the same time, he realized Majera was going through shadow demonification, and much faster than he expected. Still, that worked in his favor. If she turned into a shadow demon human in front of everyone, that would help a lot. With envy all over her face, Majera called out to Alicia again. Alicia was still shaking, but this time her courage finally broke through. She shouted at the top of her lungs, telling Majera to stop it and accept reality. She said her thesis was far better, that Majera's version wasn't efficient at all, and asked how many more times she planned to steal her work just to feel satisfied. That last line grabbed the whole crowd's attention. As she kept speaking, she forced out everything she had been holding in. She even yelled that Majera was way dumber than her. Baek, the knights, and even Majera herself were all shocked. Then Corden burst out laughing, saying this was incredible, and he had never had this much fun before. Majera was stunned to hear that. Looking at her own hand, she wondered what was happening. Something was wrong with her. But then the rage came flooding back. She charged toward Alicia, asking how she dared. But before she could get close, someone else stepped in front of her. Our human told her to stop and look around at the mood in the hall. That made her notice all those eyes on her, Corden and everyone else. That's when she completely snapped, screaming that Alicia was the one who stole her thesis. Corden ordered the guards to throw Majera out. As they dragged her away, she kept yelling that no, none of this was her fault. Once she was taken out of the hall, Alicia dropped to her knees and let out a long breath. Then a hand reached out to her, someone there to support her. It was our human. He called to her and said she did a great job today. That caught her off guard and left her a little flustered. But soon she broke into a huge smile and told Baek, yes. Sometime later we saw those two again. As Hazen said, it had just been a false alarm. Kane agreed. He had expected some kind of sign, but the sensor that detects shadow demonic erosion showed nothing. Hazen added that the New Moon Tower's psychometry cane wasn't perfect when it came to detecting erosion anyway. Then she changed the subject, looked toward our human, and asked if that ordinary student really was the co-author of the thesis. She lifted a finger and said our human was actually pretty handsome, making Kane ask if she had investigated him. She said yes, she had just received a report. It said his hometown was destroyed by demon humans before he came to Stella. He's a commoner. His grades are awful in most subjects, and yet he's in Class S. On top of that, even while attending the greatest magic academy in the world, he doesn't use magic. He stands out in a lot of ways, and he even asked to have his name removed from today's paper. Hearing that, Kane said he understood and that he would remember him. But before he could finish, something else caught his attention. He looked toward Baek, and Baek was staring right back at him. There was something strange in his eyes, but a moment later Baek looked away and went back to talking with everyone else. Now Kane wondered if Baek had really just met his gaze, but Hazen said that was impossible. She told him there was no way Baek could have pierced both her stealth magic and her shadow shield formation that easily. He had to be mistaken. Kane stayed quiet. After hearing that, with one last look at our human, he left the hall, saying their job here was done. Later, in another place, inside a carriage, Majera sat there biting back her jealousy, saying that if not for Baek, she never would have suffered that humiliation. Before she could finish, the person in front of her cut in. With a cold look, he said Majera had just caused a huge mess. She went pale when she realized she had nearly ruined everything. He warned her that it had been very dangerous, and she was lucky the suppression worked. If her emotions had gone any further and she lost control, all their plans would have collapsed. Majera apologized to him. He asked if she really thought an apology would fix anything, adding that the leader of the order was deeply disappointed. He told her she had lost the right to remain a teacher at Stella. Desperate, she argued that she had strong ties with the plagiarism review team, that the incident could still be covered up, and that she hadn't even been expelled yet. But he cut her off and told her to shut up and stay quiet, that the best thing she could do now was keep her mouth closed. Now all she can do is walk around with her head down. With a cold look, he asks if she understands. After saying that, he leaves to get the order leader's command and tells her not to move or make a scene. Majera starts shaking with rage, glaring as she blames all of this on Baek. Staring ahead, she tells him to wait. Just a little longer, soon he'll get what he deserves. Sometime later on a train, Baek is sitting beside Manhwa. He tells himself it's still a shame. Thinking back to Majera, he figures that if she had turned demonic during the conference, he might have stopped the disaster in episode 8, but maybe fate was always going to suppress her demonification until then. That's when she was originally supposed to lose control and become a demon. Leaning back in his seat, he decides there isn't much he can do right now, so there's no need to rush. The conference ended safely, and he also planted more resentment in her. Still, one thing keeps bothering him. He remembers that night, when he saw the Tower Knights. That face sticks in his mind, and he's sure it was Kane, a small elite magic unit, the top dark magic squad of the Great New Moon Tower. They're experts at hunting demonized humans, shadow users, and mages. And their highest-ranking captain, one of the deadliest killers among them all, is Kane himself. Baek admits that without his sixth sense, he never would have noticed they were there or guessed why dangerous people like that had come to watch Majera. Anyway, while Manhwa slowly wakes up, still half out of it, he thinks it would be great if they could build a good connection with those knights. When they arrive, someone asks if they can spare a moment. That catches them off guard. They turn and see an elegant man. With a warm smile, he introduces himself as Melian, president of the Star Clouds Trading Company. As the game goes on, the world gets bigger, and more characters appear as flame grows up. One of them is Melian, known as the Heart of the Sun Plains. Thanks to his Golden Rule of Destiny skill, he's the richest man in the world. Even though he's in his 50s and has a daughter, he's wildly popular with both the women who played the game and the women in this world. That's not just because he's rich and handsome. His daughter Zeliel is also a villain. Zeliel is a high elf who spends the whole episode tormenting the heroine Flame, fully living up to her role as a villain. So angry players came up with all kinds of plans to ruin Zeliel as much as possible. The favorite plan was to marry the person Zeliel loved most, her father Melian, then destroy him and bankrupt the whole family. Even so, Baek only expected to hear about him someday. He never thought Melian would come here in person. Looking at Melian, he knows he needs to make a strong impression here, to help with what comes next. Melian asks if they're the alchemist Alicia and her unnamed co-author, then politely asks for his name. Baek figures Melian probably already knows, but the question sounds natural enough, so he gives his name and says he's in Class S at Stella Academy. After that, Melian reaches into his pocket and explains why he came here. He hands them a letter and says he's offering an exclusive contract for Alicia's alchemy techniques through Star Clouds, with excellent terms, and asks them to take a look. As she reads it, Alicia's hands start to shake. She practically cries out, "There are limited materials, full support, and more money than she's ever seen in her life." Smiling brightly, Alicia looks at Baek and thinks that with terms like this, she could finally make every invention she's ever dreamed of. She's sure he feels the same way. But he doesn't. Seeing his reaction catches her off guard. A short silence fills the space between them. Then Alicia gets Melian's attention and apologizes. She asks if he can give her some time to think it over. Firmly, she says she needs to think carefully and discuss it properly with the co-author of the technique. That answer surprises Baek. Melian says he understands. He had thought the co-author part was just something she said at the conference to be polite, but it seems it was true. Watching the two of them, he thinks that even though she's still just a teenager, she helped solve a problem that had gone unsolved for 300 years, so her co-author really must be a genius. So he asks Baek if he'd like to look at the contract too, thinking that even if Baek is gifted in magic and alchemy, he's still just a kid when it comes to business. Melian looks at him, sure he won't turn down terms this good. But then Baek shocks him by refusing the offer. Melian clearly didn't expect that, so he asks if there's a specific reason. If Baek doesn't like the terms, he can change them right away. Baek knows an exclusive deal with the biggest trading company in the world is a huge chance, but he also knows Melian never lets go of what becomes his. If a technique like this gets tied to him, then variety, creativity, and performance will all be limited by whatever sells best. And with an exclusive contract, countless mages wouldn't be able to use it. If its growth is driven only by profit, then the shadow demonized humans will eventually catch up in skill. A lot of players who chose the money-first route got rich, but they still ended badly, so Baek tells him the issue isn't the terms. He just doesn't want an exclusive contract, which makes Melian curious why. Baek explains that this technique, which combines magic engineering and alchemy, will have a huge impact not only on daily life but also on gear made for mages. That's why they want it available to all kinds of people and all kinds of mages. Melian says Baek has big dreams and ambition, and that's good, but dreams like that still need money to come true. Baek fires back that they've already spoken with many investors, and Melian is just one more. Hearing that from the richest man in the world definitely stings. Melian keeps his cool and asks if Baek plans to sign with everyone except him. If so, he'll remove most of the conditions from the offer he made. Baek admits that's true, and honestly he really did like the terms. Then he looks at Melian and brings up luxury goods. That's his proposal. They plan to spread this technique as widely as possible, but for the hardest luxury items to create they would sign an exclusive contract with the Star Clouds Trading Company. That way, he says, it becomes a true luxury brand. Melian says that idea isn't bad, but asks if luxury items like that would really sell. He's never done anything that would lose him money. Baek says yes, and that's exactly why he isn't asking for a contract right now. Confidently, he says that in half a year he'll hold a presentation for investors. That surprises Melian even more, when Baek says Melian will like what he sees and will sign an exclusive contract with them. Melian dips his head slightly and mutters, my. Amused, he says they've really planned this all out. Then he gives them a messenger paper along with his contact details. If they write on it and send it off, it will reach him for sure. After that, he stands and tells them he's leaving now, then walks away and leaves the two behind. After he goes, Baek acts like the whole talk had him completely nervous. That catches Alicia by surprise when she realizes he was actually that tense. And just like that, it works. Alicia gives a small smile and wonders how Baek can be so amazing. In the end, Baek thinks one more problem has been handled, and when he gets back, he wants to visit a nice restaurant with his club members. The conference ended well, and classes at the academy go on as usual. During class, he hears that Majera will be on leave for an unknown amount of time, and he suspects they're hiding the fact that she disappeared. Normally, if Majera fully awakens, she causes terrible damage at the school. But after everything that's happened, Baek has no idea how that event might change now. He thinks there's a chance her demon episode could happen earlier, and hopes that if it does, it happens in a way they can control. Not only is Majera absent, but Manalus didn't come either. As he walks, he figures she's probably being happily swarmed by the people at the alchemy castle. Then some loud chatter nearby catches his attention. People are gossiping about Alice in the conference, about how she had a co-author on her thesis, but asked to keep that person's identity secret. Since he hid the fact that he was the co-author, he can still come to school like normal without anyone noticing. Because he kept his part in the background, he could still come to school without anyone bothering him. In the end, all he really did was give Alice a small hint with the help of his glasses, so it made sense for her to get all the spotlight. After thinking that over, something else caught his eye. Right in front of him were Matthias and Gisela. People around them couldn't stop praising the pair, Matthias for being tall, smart, and handsome, and Giselle for being pretty bright and doll-like. Hearing all that, Beatty could only think there was never a quiet day at this school. Then someone else showed up and drew their attention. He walked over and apologized for making them wait. Giselle asked what they were going to eat since he had said he would pick the restaurant for today. With a little grin, he told them to wait and see when they got there. A while later, they arrived at a restaurant, and yep, it was pizza. Giselle lit up at the sight of it like someone seeing heaven. Her excited reaction caught Baek's attention. He remembered reading in Giselle's profile that whenever she ate pizza, she drank pickle juice first. He still had no clue why. Seriously, what does pickle juice have to do with pizza? So Giselle handed some to her and told her to try it. That immediately caught her off guard. For a second, she just stared at it, confused about how she was even supposed to drink something like that. Still, she picked up the cup and tried the pickle juice, and somehow she really liked it. She happily enjoyed the taste. Matthias tried it too, still looking perfectly classy while doing it. When he said it was good, the jealous ones around them couldn't help wondering why everything this guy did looked like an expensive ad. In the end, Baek grabbed a slice and told them to stop hesitating and just eat. Then came the shocking part. She reached for a fork and knife. Baek stepped in right away and showed her the proper way to eat pizza. With your hands, because it tastes way better like that. Giselle said that seemed a little unrefined, but Matthias just shrugged and said it actually looked fun. Then he tried eating it the same way. That made her give in too. So she finally picked it up with her hands and took a bite. The moment the taste hit, her eyes widened and her body gave a tiny shake. She was completely won over by the calabrese pizza, and honestly, it was adorable. At this point, now I want pizza too. Baek asked if it was good. The sudden question caught her by surprise. Then with the cutest smile, she said yes, it was delicious. While that was going on, somewhere else, cracks suddenly started appearing out of nowhere. The next day, Flame still seemed distracted. When her friend called out to her, she answered that she was fine and had heard everything. Soon after, her friend left and Flame kept walking alone. With a small sigh, she figured her friend had obviously wanted to talk about Alice solving the random convergence, but Flame already knew the truth. Baek was the one behind it all. What she couldn't understand was how he solved that formula. He was supposed to have forgotten most of his knowledge of the future, except for the biggest incidents. As she walked, she wondered if he had kept his memories after all, or if he really was just that smart. Then her thoughts were cut off when someone called her attention. It was that creepy prince. He came over to ask if she would join his group for the Persona Portal training. Flame turned to him at once and asked what was wrong with him. She told him to ask some other girl and stop bothering her. Then she left without another word. He only stood there with that same unsettling smile, saying Flame really was special. As for the Persona Portal training, these portals are other dimensions born from human power, gathering inside the realm of shadows. If a Persona Portal appears and no one enters it quickly, the area around it becomes a dead zone where nothing can survive. And unlike normal dungeons which end when the boss is defeated or the core is destroyed, Persona Portals can only be closed after their patterns and devices are studied and broken. That means checking everything from concentration levels and spatial distortion rates to topology and soul isolation methods. There are countless patterns to remember, and on top of that, they still need combat skill. That was the whole reason magical warriors were created, to deal with Persona Portals. That's why this lesson mattered so much. Clenching her fists, Flame remembered that in the novel this training had a bit of real danger mixed into it. She also knew they couldn't leave everything to Baek. With a serious look, she told herself that this time she would be the one to stop major damage from happening. Later, at Star Tower on the Terrace Cafe of the new Stellar Trading Company, Baek finally appeared again. She listened as the others talked about Alice's conference. One blonde girl mentioned that her father heard the hidden co-author was actually a student from Stellar Academy. The others were shocked by that rumor, while Baek stayed quiet and sipped her tea, though she clearly wasn't enjoying it. She thought about how even the central director, hadn't been able to find out who the co-author really was, but she already knew the truth. It was Baek, working with Alice on magical alchemy engineering. What she didn't understand was why he was hiding it. Was it to give all the credit to Professor Alice? That thought led her to another one. Maybe the reason was simple. Maybe the man she liked had feelings for Alice. That idea startled even her, and she suddenly stood up from the table. She quickly told the others she was leaving. The girls were left wondering what had gotten into their princess. Meanwhile, Baek's face turned bright red just from imagining the person she liked falling for someone else. Elsewhere, someone walked up to her and called out. It was her sister, the dark-haired Princess Hong Sinha. With a small smile, Sinha told Baek to call her sister, but as a legitimate daughter and a half-sister, the two were more like rivals than family, and Baek hated her with all her heart. So she asked what Sinha was doing here, while the other girl just stepped closer with a light laugh. Still smiling, Sinha said she came because she wanted to ask her little sister about an interesting commoner among this year's new students. That caught Baek off guard. Sinha went on saying this commoner was learning chivalry and sword techniques that had already vanished from the world. Seeing Baek's reaction, she teased that her little sister seemed interested in that knight too. Then she added that a knight who gives up everything for the one he protects sounds like every princess's dream, and asked Baek to introduce her to that Baek. Baek clenched her fists. Then she turned and left, telling Sinha to do it herself. Touching her face, Sinha muttered that Baek hadn't always been like this. She guessed this change must have happened after Baek's older sister died. After hearing that, Baek kept walking away. Her half-sister watched her go. Sinha then thought maybe she had pushed too far, and maybe it had been too soon to bring up Baek's older sister. Before she could dwell on it, another dark-haired girl approached. Siren said she had some information about Baek that Sinha had missed, including a copy of a class project he turned in, with a summary of his past inside. Looking over the papers, Sinha mentioned that not long ago, they had a class assignment where everyone had to write about their past too. Then she saw the title of the document, Mom, I Miss You. At first, Sinha smiled a little, and thought of Baek as a mama's boy, but after reading the whole thing, Siren was surprised by her reaction. Sinha's eyes started to tear up as she repeated that Baek's mother once said she didn't want macaroni with black beans. When Se came and asked what that meant, Sinha just changed the subject. She was honestly shaken, realizing she had never thought poor people lived through hardships like that. The class gap was bigger than she imagined. As she looked through the papers, she thought it was amazing that Baek had lived that way and still held on to his ideals of chivalry. She also read that his hometown had been overrun by demonic humans. After learning all that, she smiled to herself and thought she almost felt sorry for Baek because now she was getting more and more curious about Baek. At last, the day of the training arrived. The teachers announced that the first-year cadets would now begin Persona Gate practice and told them to enter. And there, among the students, was Baek, thinking to himself that it was time to go in. What was about to happen next? Can Baek really crush everyone here and clear the Persona portal that easily? And will Baek walk up to our human, notice how many girls are into him, and hit him with, "The moon looks beautiful tonight"? At last, the day of the Persona portal training arrived. Among all those students, Baek stepped forward. After finishing the research lectures, his glasses analysis skill finally activated. On top of that, his stats went up from all the training he'd been doing in Ephania's garden. With all that behind him, he felt sure he could handle this Persona portal. Standing by the gate, the professor called for the next group. Then someone suddenly caught his eye. That's when he saw the team going in with him. Somehow, even when Baek does nothing, he still ends up surrounded by girls. This training is done in groups of up to 18 people, and everyone has to work together to finish it. Thinking it over, he realized most of them were first years at rank 2 or higher. Since this was a level 3 Persona portal, it wouldn't be easy. This was the very portal where the incident happens, and sadly, Matale wasn't here with them. The good news was that he still had Flame and Bea, and last but not least, Isekai too. With those three around, he figured he'd be fine. Still, what really mattered to him was the hidden reward he came for, the petals of the captivating tree. Once he stepped inside the Persona portal, something immediately caught him off guard. In a fancy hall, a woman welcomed his whole group to Haran's ball. Baek and the others looked around in surprise. Then something caught Baek's attention. A maid with a gentle smile said dresses had already been prepared for the girls. Baek was confused. She didn't remember any ballroom event being part of the Persona portal. What felt even stranger was the system screen filled with weird symbols. She thought this must mean the first-year training had extra hard rules added in, so things were only going to get tougher. The maid urged them to hurry, saying the banquet would begin soon. Seeing Baek hesitate, the maid asked if something was wrong. That only made Baek more suspicious. How could a scripted character act this naturally? She knew real Persona portals could have NPCs that behaved in unexpected ways, but training portals made by mages weren't supposed to do that. So the maid in front of her felt very suspicious. Baek still thought it should be impossible for a real Persona portal to appear inside the famous Stella Academy training grounds and for the teachers to send students into it by mistake. Spoiler, they absolutely did. The maid asked one more time if anything was wrong and Bea brushed it off, telling her to go get the dress. The maid left, but Bea couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Maybe it was just a bad feeling, but one thing was clear. This mission would not be easy. Then our girls appeared in beautiful outfits, and Bia's red dress matched her hair and eyes perfectly. Right after that, something else grabbed her attention. Of course it was our human, dressed up from head to toe. Yeah, he looked really good. Just let me say it. Jokes aside, the moment she looked at him, a memory came back. She remembered the day a maid gave her that letter written by him. Funny enough, the letter our human wrote was basically just an instant noodle ad from our world. Just a small detail. I'm reading the novel too, and the things that happened because of that letter are wild. Back to the story, learning about his sad past had really caught Bia off guard. And now, seeing how calm and distant he looked, she started to see him differently. After learning more about his life, her view of him had clearly changed. Sensing her gaze, he turned around. Then he bluntly asked why she was staring at him like that. Was it her first time seeing a commoner? Bia quickly looked away and answered, "Huh? I wasn't looking at you." Soon, a beautiful red-haired woman arrived and told them it was time to head to the ball. She showed them 4 doors and explained that each path led to the mansion's basement, but the basement was a maze full of traps. With a smile, she told them they would have to trust their own instincts and senses, then asked if they could really do that. Baek stepped up and answered with total confidence. He sounded so sure of himself that the woman even praised him. That exchange made everyone stare. They couldn't believe she was talking to him like that. After hearing all this, the students grew uneasy. Even so, Baek moved with the boys toward the path, but then Flame stopped him and asked if all of this didn't feel strange. She said the riddle was hard enough already, but the NPCs in this training portal felt like real people. She also couldn't properly read the portal itself, and it made no sense for first years to be thrown into something this difficult. The others admitted they felt the same way. They couldn't figure out anything either. Flame was glad they were finally listening, and tried to persuade them. That was when Jackie cut in and asked if Flame was about to say something ridiculous, like this place was actually real. Jackie argued that this was probably part of the teacher's plan. In real life, they wouldn't always be able to analyze a persona portal anyway, so this was likely just a test. Then she reminded everyone that they were at Stella, the academy that trained the world's greatest warrior mages. Would a place like that really fail to notice a real persona portal showing up? Her argument sounded convincing, and to Flame's frustration, everyone started agreeing with her. Flame knew from the original story that this portal was real, but if she said that outright, nobody would believe her, so she had been trying to warn them without sounding strange. Now Jackie had cut her off, changed the mood, and won everyone over. Flame couldn't help wondering why she would do that. From the side, our guy quietly watched the two of them, and he wondered if this was really the route Flame was about to take, the dark corruption route of Jackie. In the original romance fantasy novel, Jackie didn't even exist as a character, so Flame must have been shocked to deal with her at all. And this was one of the many game routes where Flame had to stop her. No matter what, one of these 3 students had to be sacrificed for the dark corruption route. Jackie, the girl jealous of Bea, or Ian. Even so, he wished none of them would fall, but maybe this was the kind of fixed fate that couldn't be changed. So when he looked at Flame, he came to one conclusion. Even if he helped her, the ending might stay the same. If that was true, maybe the right move was to step back. Jackie then walked off, saying she was going ahead, while Flame called for her to wait. Jackie insisted the teachers had planned all this, so there was no reason to be scared. If anyone wanted to stand around like an idiot, they could stay behind. After saying that, she disappeared down one of the 4 paths. That bold move convinced the rest of them too. Baek let out a small sigh, thinking no one here was acting like part of a system anymore. Still, he put that aside. It was time to move. Except before he could enter, something else stopped him. When he asked why they were following him, everyone basically answered the same way. They all knew he was dependable. That made him sigh again, already acting like the boss. He even called them young apprentices. After that, he entered the path with them, telling himself none of this really mattered that much in the end. Sometime later, he was surprised to find himself in a very strange hallway. There, he spotted Bea standing with 2 other girls and realized everyone had already arrived. Baek was startled too. She looked around, wondering where everyone else had gone. Baek, though, thought this was expected. The setup was clearly made so they couldn't all enter together. The 18 students, including him, had been split across 4 paths, with 4 people in each group. He was sure Celian and Flame had ended up together right now. What he didn't expect was being placed in the same group as Bea. Soon, she noticed him looking. Both of them quickly looked away, and he figured this was actually for the best. At least she wasn't with Celian. Then he stopped in front of the girls and told them to wait. In front of them, the mannequins were lined up in strange poses. Then Bea noticed something else. There was a door waiting at the back of the room. The other girls wondered if magic would work here. Curious, Bea asked Bea if he had already figured out the gate, and he said no. That made her think this might be too much for a commoner like him, so maybe she should find the answer herself. But before she could finish that thought, she heard, "I think I know how to get out." She looked over at once and asked if he was serious, and he told them to check the mannequins. Raising a hand, he pointed out that even with different poses, they were all doing the same dance, then asked if she knew which one. Rika answered right away. It was the Requiem of the Dead Serena. Serena was a woman who went through terrible pain and couldn't bear her tragedy, so she danced before losing her life. Then he asked if she remembered the dance itself. That was when she understood what he meant. Looking at the mannequins again, she realized they were arranged in the order of the moves, and only one part was missing. Baek asked if they were ready. The other two were already copying the dance poses and answered yes. Then he looked at Boya and, as expected of a princess,